The following is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network.
This is Speedball Mike Bailey. You're listening to Keepin It Strong Style. Yosh.
Yo, this is Rich Latta from One Nation Radio. This is brought to you by the Social Suplex Podcast Network. We present to you the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Let's go. It's the Ace of Podcasts, Keepin It Strong Style. Covering New Japan, they ready to hold it down. Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Josh. Come and hit a job out and bury all the frauds. From the Tokyo Dome over to the G1. Social Suplex is the network where we can get it done. I'ma chill and let them have it, cause this is just an intro. Keeping the strong style, 6 stars from the get-go, boy. Yeah, from Tampa Bay to the Tokyo Dome, this is Keeping It Strong Style with your hosts, Jeremy Donovan and the young boy Joshua Smith. And thank you for listening.
Welcome to Keeping It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. Jeremy Donovan here with the young boy Josh Smith. On today's show, we'll review the Road to New Beginning preview, New Beginning in Sapporo, and cover all latest news in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. You can support our show by subscribing and following the Social Suplex Podcast Network or Keeping It Strong Style on the podcast app of your choice and leaving a rating and review. You can also get all the podcasts over at socialsuplex.com. Check out our Pro Wrestling Tees store, prowrestlingtees.com/socialsuplex. That's where you can get your official Keeping It Strong Style t-shirt. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider making a one-time or monthly donation by visiting socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. This week's episode is brought to you by the NJPW EXT, the only browser extension for NJPWWorld.com. Frequently updated and with features like dark mode, improved translations and layouts, custom and share playlists, synchronized viewing parties, and much, much more. It takes NJPW World to the next level. You can visit NJPWEXT.us today for details. Young boy, how you doing, man?
Yeah, doing good. Glad to be back here on the Ace podcast. Did you, I know that the listeners at home can't see it, but did you happen to catch my nickname on the group chat?
I do. It says the ace of podcasts.
Yeah, and I feel like that's an appropriate title for me going forward. So I would prefer, instead of you calling me young boy, just moving forward, it's the ace of podcasts, and I'd like to be referred that way.
Is this?
I think I've earned it.
Is this like the Joe Lanza gimmick where you're gonna have like new nicknames every week?
No, I hadn't thought of that. But I mean, that's not really fair to like give that gimmick to him. There's a lot of people that have multiple nicknames. I just happen to be amongst the echelon of people who have many nicknames that happen to, fucking rule. No, but I am glad to be on the show, and the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling never stops.
it surely doesn't. It's always going. There seems like there's always news. There's always shows. People are always like, how can you do a 3-hour podcast about this Japanese wrestling? Like, what do you guys
Who says that?
Dude, people all the time. Like, whenever somebody hears I have a podcast, and they're like, oh, what's your podcast about? Oh, wrestling? Oh, Japanese wrestling? Oh, it's 3 hours long? You guys, what do you guys talk about?
Bro, that's your first mistake, is telling people about the podcast. This is a dirty little secret. No, but I don't tell anybody about this, okay? There's the me that's presented to the outside world, and then there's me that comes into this little pearl cocoon with you and all the listeners, and I get to roll around in all the Japanese wrestling, the fetishism, as Nick Aldis likes to call it. But these are separate entities. I never shall the two cross.
Well, yeah, I guess I do make the mistake. I let everybody know about it.
Oh yeah, that's a mistake. No, I'm just playing. But I would tell more people about it. But then, like, I don't know. I don't want to stop cursing on the show, and I got people that like respect me and look up to me, and if they like turn into the show, they're gonna hear me. They're gonna hear me saying stuff that they're not used to hearing me say. So I keep it up. That's what it really is.
Wow. I mean, your biggest fan, my father-in-law, listens in every week.
Yeah, how is he doing?
He's doing great.
He's probably one of my only fans. I think the majority of people listening prefer you.
No, I think there's a great young boy crowd out there.
Yeah, did you see we got retweeted by Josh Thompson, MMA legend today?
I saw something was going on about MMA. I figured you're getting in some kind of conversation with somebody. I was like, all right.
well, the great Fedor Emelianenko, the greatest MMA fighter of all time, is retiring on Saturday. So there is a page that I like to frequent, and they post, different MMA content. They posted something related to Fedor, and I just let the world know, like, he's the greatest. And someone, tried to school me about why he may not be regarded as such, and then I had to retort and explain to him why he was wrong.
You told him to do his research?
I told him actually, and with the actually.
Well, actually.
Actually. But then, Josh Thompson of MMA legend fame, he retweeted one of my tweets, which was kind of cool.
Nice. Well, like you said, we got lots going on in the world of New Japan Pro Wrestling. But today is, as we're recording, the last day of January, which means we have to announce the January Wrestler of the Month and Match of the Month. So, Ace of Podcast, why don't you tell the listeners who our Wrestler of the Month is?
I didn't think you'd actually call it.
You asked for the name change. I'm gonna, abide, gimmick change. I'm not one of those guys.
I say on this show is serious.
I'm not one of those guys that calls people by the old gimmicks, the old names. I like to move forward. You got a new gimmick, got to respect that.
Well, funny enough, we went back and forth, and we didn't actually crown the Wrestler of the Month until a few moments ago before we got on the air. And the reason for that is because I don't think there was any particular person that stood head and shoulders above everybody else. And there was a lot of different individuals that had fairly strong months, So just to kind of give a couple shout outs, some of the names that we had discussed that aren't going to be the Wrestler of the Month, but had good showings: Will Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr., Tetsuya Naito. Who else am I missing here?
Shota Umino,
Kenta. All those guys had a Shingo. He's another one. They all had really, really strong months and probably strong cases. And and Hiromu's another one you could probably interject. But we're going to go ahead and award the Wrestler of the Month, January 2023, to the current reigning IWGP World Heavyweight Champion, Kazuchika Okada. And this is really coming off of quite a few things. Number one, he had a fantastic main event in the Tokyo Dome, regaining the title against one Jay White on January 4th. The next night had the match of the evening, teaming up with longtime rival Kenny Omega in a pretty buzzworthy main event. Later on, during the during the Noah New Japan show, he had that fantastic angle with Kiyomiya that lit the community and the internet on fire, and everyone is raving about how awesome that was, and that kind of probably was the clincher here. And then beyond that, the feud that's ongoing with him and Shingo, he's had great showings in every single multi-man match and the promos between those two guys. So when you kind of look in totality, it kind of had to be Okada this month. So Wrestler of the Month 2023, January, Kazuchika Okada.
Yeah, and then for the January 2023 Match of the Month, I mean, there was no competition. Unlike Wrestler of the Month, this is pretty decisive here.
The MMA match.
No. The matchup between Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay from Wrestle Kingdom 17, January 4th, for the IWGP US Championship. Incredible matchup. People already watching it, throwing all the stars, popping numbers on Access TV. Just an absolute classic, epic matchup that really set the tone for the year.
Absolutely. Totally agree. One of the best matches in a long time, and it's going to be very difficult for any match anywhere in the world to equal or better it.
Yeah. And speaking of great matches and matches of the month and year, last week, Voices of Wrestling, they released their match of the year list. And once again, I voted in that poll. Done it for the last several years now. So if you go to voicesofwrestling.com, you can check out their list of the top matches from 2022. I have some write-ups for some of the matches there. I believe like 5 of my overall top 10 got to the overall VOW top 10 based off of the voting.
Based off you. You got them there. Fuck yeah. Good job, Jeremy.
So 2 New Japan matches were in the top 10, both the Ospreay and Okada matches, from the one from G1 and one from Wrestle Kingdom 16, which I both voted for. Those were my 1 and 2 matches. So check out their link there.
I'm gonna vote next year.
You should. You don't have to write anything if you don't want to.
Well, I got really close. I actually made a list, and then I couldn't figure out how to do it, and then and then I hit up Rich Craich, and I was like, "Hey, I sent my email, but I need a link," and he was like, "We already gave you one. We sent it out to everyone that voted before," and I was like, "I've never voted," and he's like, "You vote every year," and I was like, "I have never voted." And he's like, "I swear to God, I thought you voted." And then he was like, "Well, we already gave one to Social Suplex." And then I was like, "I don't think so." And then he's like, "No, I did." And then I went through the chat, and then he did. But I didn't understand. When you sent out the link to us, I didn't know that it was an exclusive. I thought that was just a general link that you could go on like the internet and just find like anybody. I didn't understand the inner workings of how this all worked. And then by the time like I had everything ready to go, I just procrastinated and didn't put in my top 10. So my voice was not heard. I am the voice of the voiceless.
Because of you, Shinihan fell behind. We could have had some more matches higher.
My match of the year was going to be FTR versus Briscoes for Supercard of Honor. So, no, I don't think Shinihan fell behind.
No, New Japan did pretty good. Had a lot of matches represented throughout that list. And yeah, FTR Briscoes dominated the top 10. The dog collar match being the number 1 voted match of the year. That was in my top 10 as well. So yeah, check out voiceofwrestling.com. See their list there of all the matches of 2022. So now let's move on and talk about what's going on in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So we had 2 Road to New Beginning shows last week from Koraukuen Hall. Unfortunately, both of these were clap crowd only shows. I was a little disappointed when turning on, they were only clapping.
I kind of get the distinct impression that there's going to be a bit of a, I don't want to say a learning curve, but like a reacclimation to being fully cheered crowds, because even in the situations where they've sort of lifted those restrictions, we've seen people cheer, but it hasn't felt the way that it felt pre-COVID, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like it's not very often that you're hearing the high-pitched screams and the calls of wrestlers' names. It's kind of like more subdued, and they're still almost relying here and there on their sort of like knee-jerk reactions, like with the clap reactions that they've sort of been conditioned to doing over the past 3 years. So I am, even like with the Tokyo Dome, which was a great crowd, I mean, they definitely chant and cheer in appropriate spots, but they just aren't, the crowds haven't been quite as lively yet. The only time that I can remember a fully cheering crowd going crazy was probably the aforementioned Okada Kiyomiya angle. Other than that, the crowds have still kind of felt like in this weird nebulous sort of transitionary stage.
Yeah, but I think these were like, I don't think there were a lot of cheer for these two Koraukens, if I'm mistaken. But
Oh, I should have prefaced it. I didn't notice that they weren't cheering crowds because so often the cheering crowds are still kind of clapping that I'm almost not even noticing one way or the other at this point.
Gotcha.
That's what I meant to say.
Gotcha. All right, so let's talk about these shows here. So night one, January 24th from Koraukuen Hall. Show opened up. We had Great Okan defeating Roy Oiwa with a pancake hold, 6 minutes and 47 seconds. Great Okan kind of trying to rebound from the loss of Shingo.
Yeah, and before we jump into it, one thing I did want to say, I loved these Koraukuen Hall shows. I know last week I told you I was a little worried because there were so many shows in such a short amount of time, and I didn't realize only the 24th and the 25th were making tape. But over the past few years, we've seen a lot of Road 2 shows just kind of be cannon fodder, just typical run-of-the-mill, multi-man tags, no angles, no heat, nothing interesting, the same old, same old. And it's good wrestling, but it's not really anything that you need to tune in for unless you're like the most diehards. But on these two particular shows, I'm not saying that there was any matches that stood out in particular as being like classics, but it just felt like what we used to get from New Japan. A lot of like character progression, a lot of forwarding the feuds, a lot of heat. The crowd was really into it. Fun, interesting, energetic. And it really did a great job setting the stage for the upcoming New Beginning in Sapporo and Nagoya or Osaka shows coming up. So I don't know. These just felt kind of different. And for the first time in a long time, I'm kind of actually excited to even review Road 2 shows.
Yeah, there's something, I don't know if there's been any changes in the creative room or if Gail's just, pulling out the good stuff because, cheering is going to be back or what the deal is. But it definitely feels like there's a lot more focus right now in the way New Japan is booking, and these Road 2 shows, unlike some of what we've seen in the past few years during COVID, like these Road 2 shows, there was a focus, there was build, like you mentioned, there was so much build, there was a clear direction in every single match. There wasn't really any throwaway matches. Every match was kind of pointing in a direction, setting up these big feuds that are coming up on the next couple of weekends. And there's just an overall, like, these felt like true, like, go home shows, the quote unquote Western version of a go home show where you're building up all these angles for a big blow off.
Well, I think it's got to help a lot that you have your roster in the country and you don't have the fear that someone's going to get sick and get tested and be off the show or be unable to make the town or get into the country or and I'm not saying that anything was wrong with those parameters at the time, but it is nice now to not have to worry about them. And then that way you're not having to hedge your bets against some sort of issue on the tour about someone getting hand, foot, mouth disease or whatever.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think that allows them to probably be more focused in their booking, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So like I said, the show opened up with Great Okan defeating Roy Oil with the pancake hold, 6 minutes and 47 seconds. Great Okan rebounding from the loss of Shingo from New Beginning in Nagoya.
Yeah, I think during the backstage promos, he mentioned how frustrating it was to have gone from main eventing the previous taped show where he was, in the main event, had an opportunity at KOPW, had an opportunity to be number one contender, and then the next night, he's curtain jerking with the Young Lions. So that was kind of funny. And then you really get the sense that Okan is, I don't know what the correct term here would be, but he's sort of just like playing games with Oiwa. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of just, sometimes we see guys lose and they come back with a vengeance, like Will Ospreay, for instance. He came back the next night after the Tokyo Dome. He wanted to get his heat back. That wasn't quite what we've seen Okan do that in the past too, if you recall, where he was like going on a tirade and going through all the lines, going through the dads in the opening matches. That wasn't this. This is kind of a guy who kind of understands his character and is sort of just out there playing games with this young lion and showing him that, like, hey, I used to be where you were a few years ago, but like I'm like multiple levels above you, and like I really just don't give a fuck, and I can like take my time and put myself out there, and you really can't do shit with me anyways.
Right, just kind of reestablishing, his dominance and kind of, getting some confidence back. And yeah, it was a really good matchup, and it's kind of like a situation of almost like a predator playing with its prey. Oiwa really didn't stand a chance at any point, but
right,
you kind of gave him that false sense of security, but it was Okan all day.
I loved during the post-match where he was like, wow, Oiwa, being an amateur wrestling specialist, you were defeated by an amateur wrestling hold. That has got to be so embarrassing for you. I've never dealt with anything like that in my life. Meanwhile, he was in an MMA match showcasing his mixed martial arts quote-unquote skills, and he was choked unconscious by an MMA chokehold just the night previous. And he was like, wow, that's going to be so embarrassing for you to be beaten by your own style. Yeah. He's like, luckily, we've never dealt with anything like that.
Oh, man. So, yeah, fun way to open up the show there. Then we had the Bullet Club team of Gato and the Bone Soldier Taiji Ishimori. They defeated Jado and Master Wato with the brass knuckles in 7 minutes and 31 seconds. Gato's able to get the brass knucks on and clock Jado with them to get the win.
Yeah, there seems to be a story brewing between Gato and Jado, and I don't know if it's going to have actual repercussions, but they're kind of standing in as proxies for Jay White and Hikuleo, who are both kind of absent from this tour, which is kind of strange considering the nature of their match is going to be a loser leaves Japan match. And yeah, it's very conspicuous that they're both just not here. But these guys, obviously, we all know the history between Gato and Jado. If you don't know, they have been inseparable almost their whole career. Long time stablemates and tag team partners. And then, obviously there was a split with the Bullet Club split with GOD. And both of these guys are acting as though if their guy loses, the other one's going to have to leave Japan with them. Like, which I don't know if they're going to stick to that, but like, Jado's acting like if Jay White leaves, then that's it. Gato has no reason to be around and he's going to leave Japan. And, vice versa. If Hikuleo leaves, like, Jado has no use here. Never mind that there's still going to be a GOD. Never mind that there's still going to be a Tamatonga and probably a Tangaloa. Like, nah, you got to leave.
You're done. You're cooked.
You're done. In the bin.
So yeah, it's been interesting to see the kind of that story playing out and seeing where that's gonna go. There's part of me that kind of feel like there might be some kind of swerve here, and Jado and Gato somehow get back together, which we've kind of done based off everything that's happened so far in the split, and Gato's hitting this man with brass knuckles. But if they want to go back to that, get heat, brother, get that heat booking, I could definitely see Jado screwing over Hikuleo and helping Gato and Jay White.
I am entertained by the interactions between Gato and Jado, but long term, I think they should blow that off with some sort of match, even if it is on like a C show. They need to do something. But I'm much more concerned about the fact that there's no Jay White and there's no Hikuleo, and this is a big stipulation and something that people were really, really into back on 1-5, but now like I joked earlier, and I used that, what is it, the world of MLW never stops?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like spoofed that, but the truth is New Japan is cooking right now when it comes to how much stuff is in the works, what's going on. There's a lot happening, and that sort of just has become a forgotten program. No surprise. Jay White is very used to being in big-time programs that he's not here promoting that seem to lose steam down the pipe. And I think that's what's kind of happening here. I haven't heard very many people talking about this. And at this point, if both guys did leave for WWE, I wouldn't be surprised with how little investment there is in what's going on with those two guys.
Yeah, I mean, they could do a double count out finish and get both of these guys out of here.
Oh, my God. Can you imagine?
Double KO.
Yeah, the Rocky 2 finish. Yes.
Luckily they have Gato and Jado trying to hold this feud up. Also, Ishimori and Wato are feuding as well. they're going to have a singles match coming up. So a lot of heat between those guys. Wato really trying to get after Ishimori and trying to prove that he's on Ishimori's level, even though he already pinned Ishimori previous to Wrestle Kingdom.
Yeah, and it's hard to say when or if this will have title implications, but because there's nothing domestically going on with, say, Kushida or any other major junior program, I would have to imagine that the winner of this is a number one contender. Obviously, we've got beyond just New Beginning, Fantastica Mania is around the corner. Before you know it, it's going to be New Japan Cup. So it'll be interesting to see when or if they decide to pay that off. But I have to imagine that the winner of Wato Ishimori is going to be in line for a title shot.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, Ishimori, I know they don't always do automatic rematches, but I mean, Ishimori was just a champion, so it would definitely make sense for him to get another title match.
Yeah, and at the same time, that story that they sort of started to plant the seeds for during the four-way match at Wrestle Kingdom seemed to imply that there's, if not maybe not immediately, but long-term, there seems to be a road that Master Wato can traverse to eventually become the junior heavyweight champion. I don't know if that's going to be sooner or later, but it seems to be in the cards.
Yeah. So after that, we had the United Empire team of Aaron Henare and Francisco Akira. They defeated two of the Just Four guys of Doki and Taka Michinoku via the Ultima, 9 minutes and 16 seconds.
I don't like that you're numbering the Just Four guys as just two of them. Like, I think where two go, all go. It doesn't matter if it's a tag team, it's still just four guys. They beat just four guys.
Oh man. Fresh off the press, Just Four Guys shirts are now available on Tokon Shop Global.
I did see that, and I have to imagine whoever did the art for that probably did like the art for most of the Tai Chi shirts, because it's like similar font. It's something I would never wear, but I think like most people wouldn't wear either.
Yeah. But yeah, fun matchup here. So the main focus of this match is building up the junior tag title match between Francisco Akira and TJP against Doki and Kanemaru. Doki did get a pin over Akira recently, so Akira trying to get some revenge there on Doki, but ultimately it was Henare who got the win for the team on Taka with the Ultima.
Yeah, and Henare has been kind of frustrated recently because of the fact that he's been teaming with the juniors and wrestling the juniors from Just Four Guys, and he's like, I'm not a junior, and obviously these guys can't stand up to me, but the company's not giving me bigger challenges, yada, yada. But it does seem like right now they're gearing up for the upcoming Tamashii shows, and that's sort of where he's focusing most of his attention at this time. So this is sort of like a warm-up for what he has on the horizon over in Oceania.
Yeah. So then, following that, we had the Chaos match with Hiroki Goto, Tomohiro Ishii, and Yoshihashi. They were teaming up with Oscar Lube to defeat the TMDK team of Kosei Vegeta, Mikey Nichols, Shane Hayes, and Zack Sabre Jr. 11 minutes and 59 seconds via Boston Crab. We got new music for TMDK, kind of like a British kind of punk music for the team. New kind of vibe with Zack Sabre Jr. as the frontman.
Yeah, I'm loving the vibe of TMDK, the new look, the new music. And by look, it's the same look, but they've all kind of got quasi-matching gear.
Well, Zach's changed it up because he's abandoned the black and gold. He's got the orange and black now.
That's what I was saying, Jeremy.
I'm just saying he got new gear. Nichols and Hayes got the same gear.
Right, and he's kind of like aligned to match with them. And then obviously like Fujita, he's still dressed like a young lion, but he's sporting or rocking the Team DK shirt, so he's kind of in that same vein. But these guys, boy, I will tell you, they're firing on all cylinders, and it's probably pretty easy considering who they've got to dance with. I mean, Bishamon and Tomohiro Ishii, we forget, but they are probably, if not the greatest trio in the history of the never openweight six-man tag team titles. and then you turn them in with any one of these young lions, whether it's Luebe or Oiwa. And I don't think we're saying Oscar's name correct, but we'll figure it out here eventually. And, everything's just great. And we've already, since the beginning, talked about how highly we thought of Oiwa and how highly we thought of Fujita. And this story that they sort of have going is so, I put a tweet out about it this week, but it's so unique because he's still a young lion. He's still treated like a lion for the most part, but he's gaining skills. He's gaining a sense of character, even if he's not like doing the traditional lion stuff, like, adding tape or adding something to his boot or, gaining a new skill set necessarily in the traditional sense. Like, he's sort of adopting characteristic and traits from TMDK, and then that's sort of bleeding through into their matches. And then beyond that, there's this sub-story, not just with, obviously Ishii and Zach, they've got their issues with the TV title on the line, and then Bishamon and TMDK for the tag titles. But every young lion that gets in the ring wants to fucking murk Fujita. Like, they are pissed about
They hate this man. It's like in high school when the freshman becomes like boys with the seniors. And your freshman friends are like all mad at you because you think you're the big shot. You're hanging out with the seniors on campus. You think you're all cool now.
With the big dog.
Yeah.
He's like the he should have made JV, but they redshirted him and they put him on the varsity team, and it's like, the fuck.
Oh man. And also what's been great is the post-match promos where Zach's giving him like a new like British phrase of the day to learn, and after this match he's like, you lost, you went tits up, and he's just like, yeah, tits up.
Bro, I don't know. See, here's what's funny is like, okay, we definitely have international listeners, and there's in the fan base there's a lot of like overseas listeners, and there's probably who know what the fuck they're talking about, but I don't. And this is coming from someone who's watched like 6 seasons of Love Island UK. I know all the I know all the British slang, but like they're going. Actually, I don't, obviously, because they're talking about being a blinder and going tits up and lovely jubbly. What, I don't know what any of that means, but it doesn't matter. Just from inference, I'm kind of trying to gather what I think they mean, and instead of Googling it, I'm just along for the ride. I'm putting myself in the shoes of Fujita, who also doesn't know what the fuck it means.
You're living his experience.
Yeah, I'm trying to empathize and understand where he's coming from. But it is very unique what they're doing with him and with the team. But beyond that, the actual, not just the story is good, like, how like the Bloodline story is good, but the matches aren't?
Yeah.
This story's good and the matches are good. In fact, I know it's only been a very short period of time, but just on this little tour here, the team that I think is the most standout when it comes to multi-man tag team matches, it's TMDK. It reminds me a lot of what United Empire was like. When did they debut? 2 years ago?
Yeah, that was like, 2020, right?
It might have been pre-pandemic, 2019. I don't know.
No, because Ospreay was still facing 2019. I think it was during the pandemic.
Either way, when they first came on, we were remarking how there was so much thought and, uniqueness and effort put into their undercard multi-man tag team matches. And we're like, eventually people are going to catch up and understand that these guys are setting a tone and a style that's vastly different from everything else that's on the undercard. Look where that's gotten them to today.
Mm-hmm.
TMDK is doing the same thing, but in their own unique way. And it's all, we already knew how great all 4 of these guys were, but I don't think I had the vision of what pairing them together in ring would necessarily look like. Bro, it rules. And,
yeah, it's awesome.
That's taking nothing away. I'm not taking anything away from, like, say, LIJ or United Empire. Those guys are still awesome, but these are the best multi-man tag team matches in the company right now.
Well, yeah, it's just a fresh combination, a fresh program, and also you're filled there with 8, great wrestlers in this tag match, and you mentioned great stories and a great match, and a lot of people think you can't have both. They think you either have a great story or you have a great match. No, you can have both. You can do both, and it works. And we're seeing this here now, like you mentioned, with this story with Vegeta being a part of TMDK, being Zack Sabre Jr.'s personal young lion, kind of learning the tips and tricks, learning the submission game, the British catch style, learning the British slang, learning some of the, the Aussie slang from TMDK. So overall, really good story, and there's a lot of heat between Bishamon, Nichols and Hayes, and Ishii and Sabre, and then, like you mentioned, with Vegeta and the Young Lions, like this felt like a really hot, heated program where these guys wanted to kill each other.
One last thing before we move on to the next match, and I know we're going to review Night 2 and talk a little bit more about these guys, but from a technical standpoint, technically speaking, and I know this might be confusing to some people, strong style is not what most people think strong style actually is. I mean, it's a terminology that has shifted and changed and ebbed and flowed as time has gone on, and even like Tanahashi has said that strong style is not really a real thing. It's more like a marketing slogan that just happens to align with what New Japan is at any given time. But there was a point in time where it did represent a particular thing. That being said, we have many times on this show awarded our quote-unquote Carl Gotch Strong Style Wrestler of the Year award to one Tomohiro Ishii, but technically speaking, he's not really a strong style wrestler in the classical sense. Someone that is, I was going to say Will Ospreay, Zack Sabre Jr. Mm-hmm. And during this feud, the idea of strong style has become a very prominent theme amongst those two guys where, it's funny, we used to say the Never title was the strong style belt. Well, Zack has deemed the TV 15-minute title as the de facto strong style title that he represents. And he keeps saying that he wants Ishii to show him his strong style. And Ishii on the backstage promo was like, I'm not strong style. And he's not, because look at who his trainers and his masters were. They weren't from New Japan necessarily. Right. Freelancers and All Japan guys.
Yeah, I remember when we were in Dallas in the press conference for G1. I think it was you. You asked him a question about strong style, and he was like, "Yeah, strong style. I don't know what that is. I'm not strong style."
I don't think that was me. That you got me confused with someone else.
All right. Well, somebody asked him a question about strong style and his style, in the U.S., and he was just like, "Strong style? What? No, I'm not strong style."
Right, and I mean, from a technical standpoint, in the literal sense, he's not. Even though what he does today is what we equate to strong style in modern sense. Most people would not look at what Zack does and call that strong style, but in the classical technical sense, it actually is.
And the Inokius.
Yeah, he's much more closely aligned with the way Antonio Inoki and the wrestlers from the 80s and 70s wrestled than Tomohiro Ishii is. Ishii's much more in the vein of the All Japan Four Pillars and Ricky Choshu.
Yeah, he's more of a King's Road style wrestler.
Closer to it, yeah, very much more closer to it. Although Ricky Choshu sort of put his spin on that when he went over to All Japan. So, it's all technical. But obviously, we love anytime those two guys mix it up. We've even seen one of their major matches live when we were in New Orleans. Yeah. We saw their Rep Pro title, when the title changed from Zack to Ishii. But those guys have had many incredible battles, and they're going to have another one, and they're doing a great job building it up right now.
Yeah, this program has been awesome so far.
And I wish Samso was here so we could be how many of their matches have gone sub 15 minutes? I think the only one I can think of for sure was that one Wrestle Kingdom match, and maybe they've had others, but I don't know off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'd have to look at Cage Match and see. So following that match, we had a Bull Club team of El Phantasmo and Kenta defeating Hiroshi Tanahashi and Hiroyoshi Tenzan, 13 minutes and 21 seconds via the sudden death. So we're building up the Kenta Tanahashi matchup that's coming up, and ELP has a Never Openweight title match coming up, and much like his brother Hikuleo, Tama Tonga is nowhere to be found to help build up this Never program.
And while those three guys have those things, apparently, according to Kenta, Tenzan just has a monstrous, gigantic head.
Well, he does.
Every night during the backstage comments, he's talking about he's having nightmares about that giant, mongoloid head of Tenzan. He's just he's very frightened and disturbed by it.
Dude, Kenta is the man when it comes
Kenta's
to promos.
the promo cutter in wrestling. He's so funny, bro.
He's awesome. But yeah, another fun matchup here. Kenta, Tanahashi kind of kicking off their program from last year. So there's a lot of, bad beef there, a lot of hate filled from there, especially with Tanahashi injuring Kenta from that Wrestle Kingdom 16 match, which had Kenta out majority of the year. Scar still on his back from that matchup. And
Tanahashi kind of feels like the air's deflated out of him a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of feels like obviously he's not in a big, feud. He's kind of being downcycled right now.
I don't mean that in the literal sense, like, the company's not behind him. I mean, like, from a character work standpoint, he feels deflated. Like, every night he's just kind of, like, meek and kind of, like, quiet, and he's cutting his promos sitting down on the ground, sort of unsure of himself. Like, it's weird. And then, like, there's one night where he's like, if I want to get back on top, all I got to do is beat Naito, Okada, Will Ospreay, and Sonata. He's like, and then I'll be back on top. I think he said like Shingo and Kenta too, and it's like, all right, bro,
go Ace.
But yeah, this match, even though they've done it so many times, it feels kind of like they're at a crossroads. These two guys.
Yeah, definitely. Both guys are kind of been in the same position. They're not, in any big future title matches or main eventing stuff, really. So here's a big matchup for them that's going to kind of set, I think, the trajectory for them going forward in this year. And I could see the winner of this match potentially being, obviously Kenta has a strong title match coming up, but I could see the winner of this match maybe getting a future U.S. title match against Kenny or a TV title match. I can definitely see some championship implications from the winner of their matchup.
Sure.
But ELP, he got the win with the sudden death, so they're really trying to heat him up for his never openweight title match against Tama Tonga.
As they should.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yeah. Then sixth match of the night, we had Bushi and Hiromu Takahashi. They defeated Ryusuke Taguchi and Yo, with Bushi getting the MX on Taguchi. So building up the junior heavyweight title match between Hiromu and Yo.
Yeah, obviously Bushi and Hiromu teamed together for a very long time. Bushi and Taguchi are sort of like the odd men out because realistically this match is mostly about Hiromu and Yo, but I'm really digging what's going on between these two guys, and we'll talk about this feud a little bit more on the second night because the finals of the main event were really important to what's going to happen between these two guys going down the stretch. But I got to tell you, Jeremy, for the first time in a really long time, Yo does not feel like a hoe to me.
Yeah,
Yo feels like a player. Actually, now that I'm thinking of it, of course, I was out over the month of December last year, so I didn't see a lot of the Leo tag team, so I can't speak to all of that, I'm sure, but I heard good things. But for me personally, the last time Yo felt hot was when he got back from excursion and started wearing the black gear and was facing off with Hiromu. Now everything's kind of full circle. We've had great matches between these two guys. We had them in the finals of a Super Junior, yada, yada, yada. But from that point, which I felt like that match they had all that way back then was sort of a letdown, to now, Yo kind of feels a little bit like built back up, and so does Hiromu to a certain respect.
Yeah, definitely from a kayfabe and maybe just a actual shoot standpoint, I think the team with Leo Rush really did help kind of refocus and re-motivate Yo. That was a great team. I feel like Leo really just kind of, lit a fire underneath Yo. And yeah, he switched up the gear from white to black, and he's just been a lot more focused, a lot more, heated, more fire. When we were talking about that, this guy was in some big programs. He was in this heated feud with his ex tag team partner. He was getting junior title matches, but there was just a lack of fire there. Kind of had this lackadaisical kind of energy and attitude But now we're seeing that fire, we're seeing that grit, and it's definitely very intriguing to watch.
Someone find ACH, call him up, get him back to Japan, and let's get him in a tag team with Show and get this shit worked out.
Oh my gosh.
You think I'm joking? That was not a joke. This is a real booking idea.
Go,
Gato,
go,
I know you're
ACH.
Yeah, go, ACH.
Yeah, where is ACH? What is this man
Bro,
doing?
I miss him. I love him. I don't know.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah, I would love. Hopefully, he does come back. Yeah, bring him in for the junior festival. But yeah, so Yo's looking great, and I'm actually excited for the upcoming junior title match with him and Hiromu. I think it's definitely going to be it's kind of a good turning point for him. Is just getting him cooking this year.
Yeah.
So then the semi-main event of the evening, we had TJP and Will Ospreay from United Empire defeating Taichi and Yoshinobu Kanemaru from Just 4 Guys. 13 minutes
not
intense.
From Just 4 Guys. They were Just 4 Guys. They beat 4 guys.
Just 2 guys who were just 4 guys.
No!
2 guys that were 4 guys that are part of Just 4 Guys.
The ace of podcasts.
They lost via the Hidden Blade. Will Ospreay once again hitting a nasty Hidden Blade to get a win here. This time was on Kanemaru. I'm loving this feud between Ospreay and Taichi. Once again, another heated program that they're building up. These guys are in each other's faces. We're seeing a more intense Will Ospreay. He's trying to rebuild after the loss to Kenny. He's laying those strikes in there. You got Taichi, who's trying to prove himself and, showing that, the old guy, the olds, can still run it with some of the younger talents.
Yeah, and you know what else, too? And I'll speak to what you mentioned there, because that's all true. But I really feel like Kevin Kelly and Chris Charlton have been fantastic on the last 2 shows. I know last week I was a little bit critical, and I shared some criticism about some of the calls that they did on the last big New Beginning show, but that's sort of an anomaly, and it's not the regular with these guys. They do a really, really good job going out there and kind of telling the stories that are between these guys, as well as calling the action. And I really felt like with them being in Japan, it helped a lot with the call. Mm-hmm. And I had mentioned last week how I'd heard that there was some negative feedback from a certain subsect of fans about their call during the Noah New Japan show. I went back and watched some of those matches, and I got to tell you, they were incredible. Anyone that was critical of what they said or how they called the action during that show is out of their mind. They were so, especially during the Okada Kiyomiya stuff, they were incredible. But I digress. As far as Will Ospreay and Taichi goes, I'm loving everything between these 2 guys, because a lot of people forget they do have history from their days as juniors, but even more so just before Wrestle Kingdom, when Will Ospreay was starting to make the jump, the transition from junior to heavy. His first really big test was or not his first big test, but his last test before he made the solid jump to heavyweight was Taichi, who was the never champion at the time. And this in December of 2019 or 2018. I don't even remember.
Yeah.
But they had an incredible match. Will Ospreay had a broken foot back then. And people were, saying how he got one of the best matches out of Taichi that anyone had ever gotten, which I think people by that time who were paying attention already knew that Taichi was extremely talented. It wasn't just all Will. Mm-hmm. But these guys have had fantastic matches, and I think they're going to have another one, especially with where they're at in their careers. Will, during the backstage comments, was talking about how Taichi has nothing left to give him. And, it's sort of if Taichi wins, it's all positive. If he loses, he's just a loser anyway. So he's exactly where he was. Mm-hmm. So Will needs some stakes. And he's like, what does this man have that I haven't already taken from him? Because I've already beaten him so many times. And he's like, Miho Abe. He's like, I heard you're single out there. Hit your boy up.
This man, Will, is trying to steal his girl.
Bro, I hope he shows up with Miho Abe for that match. Because can you imagine the crowd reaction and the heat if he I heard other podcasters speculate about how they would reintroduce Miho Abe, if at all. And I think this is the way you might want to do it. Like, bring her in and let her be on the opposite side of Taichi. Like, oh, bro, my heart is like...
Dude, that would be definitely a high drama, high stakes there. Yeah, adding Miho Abe to United Empire, being Ospreay's new manager, definitely add a new wrinkle to this.
Another thing, too, Just Four Guys. Now, granted, the name is stupid. Granted, I don't know what kind of creative the company actually has, what the grand scheme is, if they've got big plans in place for them. My gut and my mind are both telling me no, they probably don't. But did we fucking forget who's in Just Four Guys? Taka Michinoku, one of the greatest legends in the history of junior wrestling. Yoshinobu Kanemaru, one of the greatest juniors, the preeminent junior in the history of Noah. Taichi, who's a fucking killer, like a motherfucker that, like, yeah, underneath all that opera singer bullshit, like, he will drop you on your dome without hesitation and then, like, palm fist you. And then, who else is in that group?
Doki.
Oh, and then Doki, who's never going to go back.
Never going back. This man's doing sentons off the top to the outside, crazy wild dives. This man's not going back to Mexico.
Okay, and I hate to be that guy. I'm not trying to disparage anything that happens in AEW, but there's a lot of, like, kind of ragtag groups that have been put together in AEW. None of them have impressed me the way that this group has already, even with very little, like, long-term creative plans, seemingly on the horizon, even without the support of Minoru Suzuki and Suzuki-gun. These four guys are going out there and killing it on this tour, because they're extremely talented. Even if two of them are old, even if three of them are old, and then you got Doki, who's, like, just doing whatever it takes not to go back to the slums of Mexico. Like, these guys kind of rock. And I'm not going to be surprised if down the road there is some transition from Just Four Guys into something bigger or better, because they're really, like, working their asses off on this tour.
Yeah, and something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Taka match, they brought back Taka doing, a ring announcement and kind of a pre-match thing, where back in the day, he used to
kind of getting over.
Yeah, he used to do the Zack Sabre time back in the day, and now he's, doing, he says to the opponents, "You are already dead."
You're already dead. Bro, when he said that, I popped, and I'm like, dude, we've seen all throughout the history of wrestling, catchphrases work. Mm-hmm. And, look at Taka's history, even before Japan. Well, not before Japan, but, like, after, in his earlier days in WWE, he's like, he would cut the promo, blah, 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 but, like, he wasn't really cutting it. And then Funaki would be like, "Indeed." And, like, it was highly racist, but it got over. And they were, like, a big act on the undercards of WWE. And, like, it was something that you could, like, market and franchise and put in video games, and they did, and everyone loved it. It's, like, one of the most remembered things of, like, the Attitude Era. Like, Taka's not an idiot, and he did have a big hand in getting Zack Sabre Jr. over all those years ago, and I think that this group is slowly but surely getting over, even if the company, like, isn't even that far, like, that invested or behind them,
Yeah. So, yeah, it's awesome to see what they're doing, and they're killing it right now. We did have a question here from OKOK890. Is it just me, or are the preview tag matches on this tour better than usual, particularly the Just Four Guys, United Empire, and Chaos, plus Young Lions versus TMDK matches?
Yeah, I mean, we already touched base on that, so I think we've kind of given our thoughts, and we echo those same sentiments. I can't add much more to that, but I agree with everything you just said. All those matches have been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Like we're saying, there's focus here with these programs. There's heat. There's genuine interest, and it's been awesome to watch. Also,
TJP has really, like, clicked and been awesome in this program as well. And then the last thing I have to say, Will Ospreay again, just fucking killing Doki with the hidden blade.
Kanemaru in this match.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so just killing everybody with the hidden blade.
Yeah. So then main event this night, we had Kazuchika Okada and Toru Yano teaming up with the Roughneck, Shota Umino. They defeated the LIJ team of Sanada, Shingo Takagi, and Tetsuya Naito 14 minutes and 40 seconds. When Shooter, he hits the Death Rider on Sanada, getting a big pinfall victory there over, a guy that's, top upper mid-carder, former New Japan Cup winner, former IWGP title challenger. So really a big victory here for Umino as he builds momentum into his matchup with Tetsuya Naito.
Yeah, I'm not the best at recapping the finish of matches the same way you are, Jeremy, but the way I recall it was it sort of felt down the stretch that we were going into one of those moments where, like, it looked like Umino could have been the guy that was about to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And then they sort of flipped the script on its head, and he was sort of isolated in the ring, and he started just beating everybody, and then he caught a non-legal man in Tetsuya Naito who was trying to hit him with the Destino, got out of that, hit him with the Death Rider, laid him clean out. So then it was just him and the other legal man, Sonata, countered whatever he was trying to put him in, hit him with the Death Rider, gives him the 1-2-3. And so he's standing tall over not just Sonata, but also his current rival, Tetsuya Naito. And he's fully victorious, laying out two of the oldest and most prominent members of LIJ. It was pretty shocking.
Yeah, and it was also the first time he got to cut the closing show promo, and based off the translations, he was kind of pulling some of some of John Moxley, saying he's going to be the paradigm shift in New Japan Pro Wrestling, and it seemed like he cut a pretty confident show closing promo. So yeah, they're really getting behind Umino here. This big win here, laying out Naito. This feud's getting really heated. And yeah, he's coming off great.
And it's kind of interesting too, where you look at this on paper, and granted, Yano doesn't take a lot of clean falls, but he's the most pinnable of the 6 men that were here. Me looking at it logically before the show happened, I would have easily assumed that Yano was going to be looking at the lights at the hands of Sonata or Shingo or something like that. But
right.
They went a little bit more of a bold route and chose to kind of really solidify Umino in this match. And kind of goes to show you, like, he might not be beating Naito in this feud, but they're doing everything in their power to make sure that we all know that he has the capability to beat him. And not only did he cut that promo at the end of the match, and not only did he knock out Naito, but he knocked him out so well that Naito couldn't wake up while he was cutting the promo. And, like, his faction members had to come roll him out of the ring, and, like, they had to put ice on him and, like, sort of carry him to the back. And he did his sell job was so good. It kind of reminded me when Bob Backlund dropped the title to Diesel in Madison Square Garden, how he sold all the way up the ramp to solidify Diesel as the new star.
Yeah.
Very similar to that. Like, Naito made sure to, like, never wake up. Like, he was just, like, completely out of it, getting carried to the back by the Lions and by LIJ stablemates. Like, he was fucking done. From just one Death Rider.
Yeah, and so, yeah, really putting over that Death Rider finisher, putting up over Umino, presenting Umino kind of on the same playing field as a Tetsuya Naito, and really showing, like, yeah, it's a young up-and-coming guy who's one big victory away from becoming a superstar.
Yeah, aside from that, too, it's very telling that Sonata has taken another big loss here in a short period of time. We saw what happened recently with him and Shingo backstage. There's kind of been some buzz. Something's going on with him. His post-match comments seem to indicate that he's not happy with where he's at. He's thinking he might need to rebuild, restart. People are wondering, is this the end of him in LIJ? And we've kind of always said at some point, and I'm not saying it's happening here, but if it were happening, it might not be a bad idea for him to leave LIJ, because there's only so high you can go when the guys above you are Shingo Takagi and Tetsuya Naito,
Yeah.
They seem to be telling a story that he's on a losing streak and he needs something, and that seems to be the case.
Yeah, and even if Shingo and Naito weren't in the same faction with him, he would still be well, if Naito's there, he would still be like a number 2 if Shingo wasn't there. And even being a number 2 of the faction, you're not necessarily going to be like the IWGP champion or really pushed as hard as the number 1 guy. We're seeing that now with Zack. Like, Zack was kind of in that number 2 slot in Suzuki-gun, and now he's the front man of TMDK, and he's getting more of that big push.
In recent times, like the top guys and I'll just kind of expand the parameters, not just factions. I'll also kind of include Hantai. Let's think in the past decade, how many number 2s have reached the upper echelon? Okada, when he was under Nakamura, and it's fucking Okada. Ibushi, when he was in Hantai, and you could probably say like Tanahashi's really the de facto leader of Hantai, but it's Ibushi. And then Shingo Takagi under Naito, and it's you have to be one of the greatest wrestlers that has ever lived in the history of professional wrestling to be a number 2 guy and also be at the top of the company at the right time. Like, it's really, 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 really hard to do.
Yeah. We got a few questions here. First from Rambones Slam Pig. He says, a question mostly about the returning young lions. You guys have a preference in regard to finishing moves. Do you prefer an impact driver type move, a submission move, or does it really depend on the character? Any thoughts on what best suits Tsuji or others?
I'm fine with any of it, to be honest with you. Me personally, I like when guys have a wide range of finishers and not just one particular finisher that we all know is their go-to. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Christopher Daniels was really great at doing this. He had like the Angel's Wings, he had the BME, he had the Koji Clutch. Like, he had a various series of moves that he could finish you with.
I'll give you another example, and this isn't like, it's not like Zack Sabre Jr. or Jonathan Gresham, who are like technical wizards and can finish you in a lot of different ways. Or like Sonata's really great at that too. He's got like, you know, he's got his impact finisher, he's got a submission finisher, he's got the roll up pin, all that sort of stuff. But like, look at The Rock, you know, he had the rock bottom, he had the people's elbow, but he also had the sharpshooter. People forget about that one. And he could beat you in any 3 of those things. I like that. I like when guys have a multitude of ways to believably beat somebody. Even Will Ospreay has gotten to the point now where, yeah, he's discarded some of his finishers, but he's also gained the hidden blade. I wouldn't be surprised if down the line he gains another aerial finisher.
Yeah, I could also see him doing a submission finish as well.
Right. And not only that, I'm not even necessarily a proponent of fixed finishers in general. Maybe that just comes from like my fandom of like shoot style wrestling or like, you know, 1970s world of sports style. But like, I think that there should be many different ways that you can beat somebody. I think Bryan Danielson is a great example of a guy who can finish you in many, many different ways, whether it be a roll-up, you know, a special type of pinning situation or an impact finisher, or he has multiple submission finishers. I mean, all that stuff's great.
Yeah, we're even seeing that now in like a lot of the more modern wrestling video games. Like, you usually have like a finisher. You can have an aerial finisher, a submission finisher, an impact finisher, a behind finisher. You can have multiple finishers now, and I think it's great to have that in actual wrestling. And, you know, for example, like Umino, right now he's focused on the Death Rider, and I think that's cool. But he's going to evolve, and he's going to add stuff to his repertoire. And so, yeah, I think it's great for them to have, an impact, a submission, an aerial, and yeah, it's all great.
Listen, when I was wrestling and I'd be training, I'd put someone in like a top wrist lock, and I'd be like, ask him. I'd be like, that's not a finisher. And I'd be like, everything I do is a finisher. So that's kind of my like psychology behind it. I could beat you with anything I'm doing. It doesn't matter. Headlock, finisher.
Did you hear about like the time like Paul Heyman was trying to pitch like the headlock being a finish for Mark Henry?
No. What? No.
Well, he's like, he's the strongest man, the world's strongest man. So if he gets you in a headlock, like, he can crush your head. Like, I can get it over. Like, you know, every week he puts the headlock on somebody, you know, squeezes them, they pass out, they tap out. Like, he wanted to get the headlock over for Mark Henry's finish.
That might have worked.
Yeah, it could have. Senior Saburo 3K says, considering we know that Okada is facing Kiyomiya on the 21st of February at Tokyo Dome. Does this ruin the build-up to the defense against Shingo, as we know Okada is not going to lose in the build to it? Equally, Kaito's defense against Jack Morris on 12th of February.
Okay. Realistically, I don't think either of these guys are dropping their titles. But to play devil's advocate, what if one of them does drop their belt beforehand? How would that hypothetically affect the marketing and perception of the match going into it? What if Okada goes on a 2-match slump and drops the title to Shingo, and then drops the loss to Kiyomiya?
It's possible.
It's very possible. I'm not saying it's likely. Let me point it. Let me explain it to you this way. When Ken Shamrock was doing shoot fighting, right, and he was working for both Pancrase and the UFC, which were both legitimate, fighting companies. But the owners and top, I guess, matchmakers, I was going to say bookers, but sometimes they were bookers and sometimes they were matchmakers, were Masakatsu Funaki and Minoru Suzuki. And like Shane or what's his name? Why did I forget?
Shamrock.
Yeah, Ken Shamrock was going to the UFC at UFC I think 10 or 8, something like that, in Detroit, and he was going to fight Dan the Beast Severn, who he had already defeated previously in the UFC, and he was the current reigning Pancrase champion. And if he had gone as the Pancrase champion to fight Dan Severn for the UFC quote-unquote super fight title, he would have been the de facto #1 world-ranked unified champion of all of MMA, both in Japan and in America. But Dan Severn was the current reigning NWA World Heavyweight Champion, a fake wrestling company. And the NWA name in 1995, 1996 still carried a lot of weight in Japan. And dude, they were really, really scared that Ken Shamrock was going to lose to a fake, even though Dan Severn's one of the most decorated collegiate wrestlers of all time, even though he, was an Olympic alternate and all this stuff, they were afraid that the papers would print that the real fighting champion from Pancrase got beat by the fake wrestling champion from America in Dan Severn. So they made Ken Shamrock drop the Pancrase title in a work shoot match to Minoru Suzuki before he went over to fight Dan Severn, because they didn't want the guy that they were afraid was going to job to lose face just in case. They did it as an insurance policy. What if, hypothetically, we all think Okada's going to win, and it is the likely scenario, but what if Kiyomiya is going to beat Okada, which is totally possible? We talked about it last week. It's not likely, but they might want to continue the program.
Right.
And if they do, Kiyomiya might beat him. Maybe they make him drop the title before he ever goes in. So he's just going in as ace and face of the company and not necessarily world champion. And they put the title on Shingo as a make good. That's all possible.
Yeah, I mean, it can definitely happen because if you don't want Kiyomiya beating the IWGP champion. So if you get the belt off of Okada, yeah, that increases the chances for Kiyomiya to get the win.
Then again, you could go that way because in the past, Kensuke Sasaki did lose a match to Toshiaki Kawada when he in a non-title match. He lost a match as the champion to Kawada. And then afterwards, it was damn, this All Japan dude beat our reigning world champion. And what did Kensuke Sasaki do? He vacated the title because he lost his honor. So, I mean, there's precedence either way.
Yeah.
Granted, you could look at it in a more traditional sense and say, yes, it probably is leading to both guys going in as champion, and they're probably both going to defend successfully, especially considering that, Shingo's the KOPW champion. I don't see him walking around with the light blue belt and the black belt. That seems absurd.
He's not Roman Reigns.
Right. Yeah. He's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Yeah, he's not Roman Reigns. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. He's not Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
But anything's possible.
Yeah. And then last question here. Okay, 890 says, with Sonata's post-match comments after the Shota loss, it seems like New Japan has something brewing for him. What do you think it is? Does he finally win the New Japan Cup? I hope not.
Anything's possible, especially in 2023. Crazy stuff's been already going on so far. So maybe I just don't see this guy as being champion material. And since I don't see him as being like a legitimate contender for the title, they should stop putting him in those positions unless they intend to strap him up. If you want to put the belt on Sonata and give him a run, why not? You did it with Watanabe. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, Sonata's a good wrestler, and when he's in there with the right guys, he can have really good matches. But like you're saying, I think a good thing to kind of freshen him up would be to break off from LIJ. I wouldn't want to see the whole New Japan Cup route. We've kind of told that story. He's won that. He had the matches with Okada, couldn't get the job done. So I think potentially giving him his own faction, or if you want to stick him, reunite him with Evil in House of Torture. I think there's definitely, he needs something different to do if he's going to advance any further than where he's at.
Earlier today, I did listen to Super J-Cast, and they mentioned how one of their listeners, I don't remember who it was, but they had sort of implied that there were certain verbiage that Ren Narita was using that was very closely aligned with the same verbiage that Sonata has been using in his backstage promos, and might imply a potential partnership if there is a split with LIJ for Sonata.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, could you imagine hypothetically like a unit that's like Suzuki, Sonata, Despy, and Narita, or even if those, Suzuki guys are not involved, just like a unit led by Narita and Sonata necessarily, that might be, because that might make sense, because Narita's sort of like in that Jon Moxley status right now. He's sort of in no man's land. He's here, he's graduated, but he doesn't have a group, and we know that can't persist long term. You have to have a unit at some point.
Yeah. So yeah, lots of interesting scenarios there to go with Sonata. So let's talk about the second night of the Road to New Beginning that was on January 25th, also in Koraukuen Hall. Show opened up. We had Aaron Hanare defeating Oscar Alube with a backspin kick, 8 minutes and 44 seconds. So
I love the black mask.
Very similar to the opening match with Great O'Connor the previous night, with Hanare just kind of showing his dominance and wiping the floor of a young lion.
What's up with Hanare like being into this like Andrew Tate shit? Have you seen that online?
Well, what do you mean?
You don't know about that?
No.
You know about Andrew Tate though, right?
No.
It's weird because I'm so like non-computer literate, but I kind of know what's going on in the zeitgeist. Like Jeremy's much more like computer savvy, but you don't seem to be as connected with what's going on.
I haven't. Who's Andrew Tate?
He's that like bald dude, like the misogynist guy who's like brainwashing all the like middle school kids, and he got picked up in like Romania for like sex trafficking. You didn't see all that shit?
Nah, I missed that.
Oh my god! All right, you're gonna need to do your own research here.
All right, I do my research and come back on that.
Yeah, but like I don't know. Like I seen shit where like Hanare's been like posting, like he's got like this masculinity book, but like some people are saying it might be like toxic masculinity. I don't know. I haven't looked enough into it.
The only thing I've seen from Hanare was him jumping, into snow in his underwear.
What? Well, hey, if if Goto can sit, naked underneath a, ice cold, rainfall, then I see no reason why Hanare can't jump in his underwear into, the snow.
Well, anyway, yeah, he got the win here with the backspin kick. So
and I think we kind of who's he facing in Tamashii? Is it Caveman Ugg? I think
so. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of what he's gearing up for next.
Yeah. Then after that, we had the Bebop tag team of Tanahashi and Yano. They defeated the Bullet Club team of Gato and Kenta via a schoolboy. So we know we had some shenanigans here. And once again, similar to Yokohama Arena, Yano was able to take advantage and get the schoolboy win over Gato.
I've got a theory. If they don't show up with the pompadours and the jackets, then it's not really Bebop tag team.
It's just
sort of like when him and Makabe come out together. If he doesn't have bleach blonde hair and he doesn't throw a chair at somebody, they're not really the most violent players.
So it's all about the attire.
And the aesthetics and the vibe.
Then after that, we had Bullet Club's cutest tag team of El Phantasmo and Taiji Ishimori defeating Master Wato and Togi Makabe with the sudden death. So once again, ELP gets the win over a New Japan Dad with that sudden death super kick. So once again, just really heating him up for his upcoming Never title match. And once again, we had some heat with Ishimori and Wato.
Yeah, fuck you, Makabe. Eat a sudden death.
Then we had TMDK, all four men, defeating the Chaos team of Goto, Ishii, Yoshihashi, and they were teamed up with Yuto Nakashima. This time, Fujita picks up the win with a arm lock over Nakashima. So big win here for Fujita in this multi-man matchup here. And this is all due to Zack Sabre Jr. Instructing him and teaching him, showing him how to do these submissions and doing this arm lock. And like you mentioned in the previous match we talked about on night one, these young lions really have heat and beef with Fujita. Nakashima was all over Fujita in this matchup, but it was the experience of teaming with Zack and learning submission holds. He was able to get that on Nakashima and get the win here.
Yeah, man. Very rare that we see a young lion pick up a win. Obviously, there will be times where that happens when they're slotted against another young lion in, like, say, a tag match or like a singles match. But generally speaking, those matches are going to be only involving other young lions. We never, hardly ever see a young lion beat another young lion when there's veterans or dads or what have you in the match. Mm-hmm. So this was very unexpected. And the finish of the match was really great because we wound up with Fujita putting the double arm lock or the key lock or the Kimura, whatever name you prescribed for that maneuver. He's applying it to Nakajima. And then Zack Sabre is also applying the move. And then Zack wrenches on it, steps over the guy's head, and applies extra pressure and kind of gives a visual cue for Fujita to also do the same thing. And then Fujita does it. And then Nakashima fucking taps. Bro, I lost my mind. I couldn't believe that a young lion won a match, even against another young lion, in a match with other big stars. And that just never happens. I was really, really shocked.
Yeah, I was shocked too, because you think young lion or either Nakashima's going to get pinned by Goto, Ishii, Yoshihashi, or Fujita once again is going to lose to, or the other way around, Nakashima would have lost to one of those guys, and then Fujita would have lost to one of the Chaos guys. So either way, you would expect one of these young lions to get pinned here by one of the veteran guys, which usually happens. But yeah, with Fujita getting the win here, that was kind of a change in kind of the booking patterns. And we had the mandate of we talked about from management saying that they want these young lions kind of fast tracked and to not be in the young lion process as long as they typically are. And so maybe that's kind of part of what this is with this whole Vegeta storyline and teaming with Zack Sabre Jr. here and getting the win here with the arm lock, which leads into a question that we got from MJWPR. Is Vegeta going to have an excursion or nah?
I don't know. I mean, okay, that's a great question. I hadn't even really considered. Is that something that you were asking or someone else was asking?
That was an MJWPR.
I didn't catch that. I just thought that was your question. But I hadn't really considered that. But, I do think that excursions are very beneficial for all the reasons we've discussed in the past. getting other world experience, growing up, living just different experiences and everything that kind of pertains to that, plus learning to work different styles, working up and down the card, yada, yada, yada. But we've seen lots of times historically where big stars and different guys just didn't get afforded that opportunity, whether that was Hiroshi Tanahashi or Nakamura, different people who didn't get a traditional excursion. Now, there were times where they were sent abroad at some point, but they weren't gone 6-8 months the way that we've seen guys in the past. Is it possible that they decide to keep some of these guys around and maybe fast track them if they think that they're progressing and are able to sort of ingratiate them to the crowd via the method that they're using for Fujita? I think that's entirely plausible, because you have to ask yourself, and it's something we've talked about on this show, what happens when he does leave? Is he still sort of like an extended member of TMDK? When he comes back, does he automatically get grandfathered into the group? Maybe he's only a member of the group as a young lion, and then when he leaves, he's a fully renewed, reformed character that has no ties to his former self. Maybe he joins House of Torture. We don't know. Maybe he's part of Stray Dog Army. It's hard to say. But it might make sense that he never does leave in the traditional sense, and they sort of graduate him in the group. That wouldn't be that different from what we've sort of seen. It's not quite the same, but like we've seen the LA Dojo guys, right? They kind of roll as a pack. We've seen them kind of graduate in their own group on their own show anyways. Might be similar to that.
Right. And I think too, I don't know exactly what's happening, off camera with Vegeta and Zack, but maybe Vegeta really is like training with Zack before his shows, or spending more time with these guys in the dojo and learning from Zack, learning from TMDK. That in a way that's kind of an excursion and learning experience right there. He's learning that British style from Zack Sabre Jr. He's learning stuff from TMDK, Nichols and Haste. So he's under a learning tree right now. He's learning a lot. We're seeing him use, like we mentioned, some of Zack Sabre's moves in these matchups. So he is learning. You typically wouldn't see this. So he is getting some kind of a learning experience while being with these guys.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have any sort of issue if they decided to like just have this be a temporary thing and then send him off on an excursion and then he does his own thing. That would be totally fine if this was just a temporary measure and that's just part of his trajectory.
Yeah.
Likewise, if they go the opposite way and they decide to keep these guys tied to one another long term, I'm fine with that either. The good thing is that this is kind of unique, it's kind of new, and it's very different from what we've seen all throughout the most recent past when it comes to the Lion system. And kind of we were sort of concerned, especially me, I would say, about the idea of revamping the system in certain regards. And there were a lot of questions. There were a lot of things that I was like, I don't know if that's going to work, yada, yada, yada. But so far what they're doing has seemed to be sort of like, let's meet in the middle. Instead of just totally overhauling the system and putting these guys in like neon green tights and giving them, their own theme music and characters, this is sort of like a middle road. And I'm sort of here for it. I like it because it's very, very different. One thing that Zack said in the backstage promo comments, he said that Fujita's going to be the first ever young lion to win a title as a young lion. That's never happened. And I'm like, dang, is that something that's like about to happen? That sounds crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts. That would be really cool if that was that happened to Vegeta. So moving on to the next matchup, we had Great Okan and TJP. They defeated Taka Michinoku and Yoshinobu Kanemaru. Okan getting the Sheep Killer on Taka Michinoku to get the win there.
Yeah. As far as that match goes, I don't really have much more to add except for pretty much what we've said in the past. Taka and Kanemaru are doing really, really great. and Okan sort of has rejoined into, we saw him in singles action the night before. We got to see him here in a tag team. And him and TJP, they looked really great together as a unit.
Yeah, and clearly, they're kind of trying to rebuild, rehab Okan after the loss to Shingo, so he got the win on the first night with the Young Lion, and now he gets to win here in this tag match. So trying to get him back on his winning ways, as well as building up the junior tag program with TJP and Kanemaru. So in the following matchup, we had another United Empire versus Just 4 Guys match. This time it was Francisco Akira and Will Ospreay. They defeated Doki and Taichi with the Hidden Blade. Once again, Ospreay knocks Doki's head off with the Hidden Blade.
This is why I got the night prior confused, because he did beat Kanemaru on the 24th, but on the 25th, he did in Doki once again. And all 4 of these guys, supremely talented. Love this match. One thing I thought that was interesting, Francesco Akira, and I don't have all the notes in front of you, but he mentioned how since him and TJP have won the junior titles, they defended them successfully many, many times. And every person, or at least one member of the team that they have defeated in their either winning the belt or defending the title, has gone on to do something, substantial in New Japan. And I mean, the most recent example of that would be like Leo Rush and Yo. They beat them, and then Yo goes on to challenge for the IWGP Junior title. And he kind of pointed out a couple other things that happened for other people. I don't recall exactly, but he was like, so basically Doki and who's he teaming with, Kanemaru?
Yeah.
He's like, you guys shouldn't feel bad, because losing to us might mean really good things for the rest of your career. He's like seems to help a lot of people when we beat them.
Oh man, Akira and TJP, awesome team. Looking forward to their title match against Doki and Kanemaru. And
I kind of feel like those two guys would be tag team of the year if they had caught fire at the right time. They kind of came at that in between period of the grading periods.
Yeah, and they might be in for another strong year. They might be trying to break Taguchi
and
Gogo? Yeah, their junior tag record. So yeah, I mean, they could have another strong year and could potentially win tag team of the year.
Well, I put out that tweet not too long ago about how there weren't many in the past decade. There's been only 3 champions for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion that have defended successfully 4 or more times.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time was in 2016 when Hiromu had his first title reign. Since then, this has been a title in flux the entire time. And I mentioned how now might be the time for them to have a long reigning substantial champion. Of course, Robbie Eagles jumped into the mentions and he was like, not if I have anything to do with it. And he sort of ratioed me on our own fucking tweet. But you look at the junior titles, and we've kind of thought that this group was going to drop the belts many times, not because we didn't believe in them, but just from a booking pattern. There's been very few teams that have held the title and defended it multiple times for a sustained period in the past decade. I think that since Apollo Go-Go, this might be one of the most successful title reigns we've seen, for a long, long time.
Yeah, it's been awesome. They're a great team. So after that match, semi-main event, we had Sanada and Naito defeating Umino and Tomioka Hanma, 14 minutes, 32 seconds via jackknife hold. So Naito and Sanada getting a little bit of revenge here, getting the victory this time, and Naito was able to lay out Umino with Destino this time.
Yeah, this finish where they do the jackknife rollover hold from Hanma and Naito is sort of like their go-to finish. Anytime those two guys are in a multi-man tag team match, this is going to be the finish. So wasn't surprised by that one bit at all, but it was kind of nice to see Naito get a little bit of a measure of revenge against against Umino, even though I don't know if you've noticed, they kind of look like.
Yeah, Umino counts like a alternate universe Naito.
Everyone talks about how he looks like Tanahashi, but when I saw the match graphic for them facing each other one-on-one, I was like, Naito, it's like the mirror match from WrestleMania the arcade game. You could play like a version of yourself.
Yeah, there was one show where they were both on, and like Umino came out, and then Naito came out. I was like, "Why is he out here again?" I'm like, "No, that's a different guy."
They're not the same. A, B, that's racist.
So building up this matchup, Umino Naito, good stuff here. Then the main event, we had Kazuchika Okada and Yo teaming up with Taguchi to defeat Bushi, Hiromu, and Shingo 14 minutes and 1 second via the direct drive. So Yo getting the win over Bushi, really getting momentum going into the junior title match coming up this weekend.
Yeah, and part of that match was Hiromu's been coming out with this master plan, this game plan. If you've seen in the past during, like, say, the Best of the Super Junior tournaments, he'll always come out with a big, like, I don't even know what you call it, but it's like a sketch pad, like
huge notebook things, yeah.
Yeah, and he'll write in the names of all the competitors and stats about them and draw pictures and whatever other fucking twisted stuff comes out of the mind of Hiromu Takahashi. Well, he's done something very similar for his upcoming title defense against Yo. But it's a game plan. He's been studying tape. He's been watching this man and trying to figure out all the shortcomings and the way he's going to defeat him, even though every time they face each other in singles action, he beats him anyways. I don't know why he needs a game plan, but he's written out his entire master plan. Well, at the end of the match, Yo was able to obtain the master plan and hold it hostage and keep it away from Hiromu. So now he has access to the inner thoughts of one Hiromu Takahashi. He knows exactly what he's been planning to do, how he's going to, capitalize on the shortcomings of Yo and the ways that he's been planning to attack. And he's going to turn all of that on its head. And Hiromu is not happy about this one bit. He's been losing. Once they went to the backstage promos, he lost his shit. And I gotta wonder again, I don't know. The whole thing's kind of far-fetched, but it's also entertaining. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely been hilarious to watch. Yeah, Hiromu's meltdown is kind of what's going on between him and Yo, building up to this junior title match. But it's definitely intriguing. Like we mentioned, Yo's kind of reinvigorated since teaming with Leo Rush and showing a lot of fire. And this program has been interesting so far. And I think we've seen them have really good matches in the past. And so with some more juice here to this rivalry, I think this matchup can be really great.
Yeah, and obviously Okada Shingo, I think that I don't know if there's as much fire and heat behind it as there were for their first couple matches, especially maybe say the Wrestle Kingdom match they had a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they're still doing a great job kind of showcasing the strengths between these two guys during these multi-man matches and making both of them look very formidable going into that match. And then obviously the visual of them two standing side by side with their respective title belts, it's a good visual.
Yeah.
Also, I just want to say, for anyone that was out there thinking that, remember when they were talking about, hypothetically, they might put the KOPW title on the line and then unify it into the IWGP heavyweight title? That would have been so fucking stupid. And here's why. You don't introduce a new title. You don't pay a belt maker to make a multi-$1,000 belt for you so that you can decommission the belt 1 month later.
Right. If they were going to get rid of it, they would have did when it was still a trophy.
They would have done it when it was still a trophy. They literally introduced a new belt that has side plates that include the names of the final champions year over year, and it has spaces for decades to come. There's no way they were going to decommission the title and the gimmick a month later after they did that. Who knows? New Japan does weird shit, but that would have been so stupid to pay however much they probably $10,000 or more for a new belt just to get rid of it a month later. What sense would that have made?
None at all.
And I'm not saying I love KOPW. I mean, sometimes I think it's funny, sometimes I hate it, but that just doesn't make good business sense. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, so let's move on. We got 2 shows coming up this weekend. 2 new beginning in Sapporo shows happening at the Hokkaido Prefectural Sports Center. So we'll start with the show on February 4th. It will open up. We'll have Great Okan taking on Oscar Lube. Then we will have El Desperado, Minoru Suzuki, Ren Narita, and Rei Oiwa taking on all the House of Torture. Then we'll have the Chaos team of Goto, Ishii, and Yoshihashi teaming up with Yuto Nakashima to take on all of TMDK. Then we'll have the Bullet Club team of El Phantasmo, Jay White, Kenta, and Taiji Ishimori taking on GOD of Hikuleo and Tamatanga, Hiroshi Tanahashi, and Master Wato. Then the 5th match will have Okada, Yano, and Yo teaming up with Taguchi to take on the LIJ team of Bushi, Hiromu, Sanada, and Shingo. And then the 3 big matches on this card, 6th match of the evening, we will have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title match as Catch 2-2. Francisco Akira and TJP will defend their titles against Doki and Yoshinobu Kanemaru from Just 4 Guys. Semi-main event, we'll have Taichi versus Will Ospreay. And then the main event of the show, Tetsuya Naito takes on the Roughneck Shota Umino.
So before we jump into the top 3 matches, seems like the first 5 matches of the night are essentially other versions of, preview matches for the remainder of the feuds on this tour. But the big difference that I'm seeing is probably the inclusion of Jay White and then Hikuleo and Tamatanga, the 3 guys that have probably been missing from this tour so far. Am I missing anything else?
No, I think that's kind of the big additions, yeah.
Okay, awesome. So, top to bottom, even though, we've been critical in the past about them taking a lot of great matches and sort of, splitting them over multiple shows to try and pop different houses. And I understand why they do that from a business perspective. We've been critical of that, but for how entertaining and also how entertaining the New Beginning tour has been so far. And then also there hasn't been a plethora of Road 2 shows. It'd be one thing if there'd been 5 Road 2 shows already and then we're getting a majority Road 2 undercard. That'd be different. But since it's been the last show we had was on the 25th. It's the 31st now. We're not going to get another show until the 4th. A lot of time is going to have passed by that point. And these guys have all been putting their working their working boots on and really, doing a great job entertaining us. I feel like that undercard's still going to be pretty strong, even if it's not top to bottom, a Wrestle Kingdom level show.
Right, and they've been doing a lot of heated angles as well. These multi-mans, we forgot to mention in that TMDK match from the second Road 2 beginning show, there was a great post-match angle where TMDK is trying to sit on the apron, celebrate, and Chaos.
Ishii was having none of it.
Right, they kept brawling with those guys all around ringside. Vegeta and Nakashima are brawling, TMDK and Bishamon are brawling, and they just kept taking the fight to them, and they would leave them laying, try to celebrate again, and then Chaos would come back and still try and come at them.
Yeah, and we've you and me, we've been in this mode. Maybe I'd say I'm not sure if you have been, but I know for sure I've been in this mode over the past 3 years where we get a show like this and then I'd be like, whoa, be on the alert. You just never know. There might be an angle. And then we watch the show and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Because prior to that, we'd been conditioned for so many years that on a show like this, you might get a little tidbit here or there. It might give you a little taste.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like we're in that realm where that's definitely on the table. I'm not saying groundbreaking, earth-shattering stuff. We're not going to see Kenny Omega show up on the screen to challenge, Ospreay, but there might be things that occur on the show on the undercard to forward the feuds that are ongoing.
Right.
So
let's talk about the 3 big matches, do predictions for those. So for Catch 2-2 defending against Doki and Kanemaru. Who you got?
You know, I love this match top to bottom, especially since Kanemaru is, here and there when Kanemaru is called upon and it's needed and it's the right time, he really does show up in a big way. Other times he's a little bit more judicial when it comes to his output. But ever since J4G started, he's kind of seemed like he's needed to like really step up his game, and he's done that. But I find it really hard to believe that now's the time that they're going to switch the belts off of Catch 2-2. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, these guys have been on such a roll right now. And like we're mentioning, they're kind of trying to, they've said themselves, they're trying to, harken back to, great junior tag teams of the past. So clearly they have that record from Apollo Gogo in mind and want to break that defense record. So I can see these guys either tying or breaking that defense record this year.
Here's the thing. If they put the title on Doki and Kanemaru, I'm not going to complain one bit. I'm going to come on the show and I'm going to be like, hell yeah, Doki got his first title. This is awesome. Kanemaru hasn't held gold in a while. This is incredible. Actually, I should say silver because those belts are not gold. It is funny how they call every title gold, but most of the belts in New Japan are actually silver, but whatever.
Yeah.
Or even for instance, I was thinking about this. The Motor City Machine Guns were we're bathed in gold, but both major tag team titles that they hold are literally platinum and silver. But I just don't think the company's going to put the junior. They could, of course, it's the junior titles, but I just don't see them putting the junior titles on Kanemaru and Doki. That's my main thing. So I'm going to go with Francesco, Akira, and TJP and expect them to continue on because they've already invested in to this point. They might as well keep going. But this match is probably going to rule. When you look at all four guys and the work they've been putting in, and I try to give them a little bit of a shout out, but it was probably understated. TJP has been fucking phenomenal on this tour, as has Akira, but TJP, even his promo work has been awesome. And one thing we forgot to mention is how there's this underlying story where Kanemaru's trying to isolate and expose this Achilles heel that TJP has with his left leg. And he's very good at telling those kinds of stories where he isolates a leg or a limb. And not to say that this match will be a body part match. It's not going to slow the match down, quote unquote, but expect that to come into play.
Yeah. I agree with you. I think Catch 2-2 is going to retain. I think the great thing that happened in Junior Tag League, they created a ton of really great teams. So there's a bunch of teams that can come out and challenge Catch 2-2 for the remainder of the year.
How many times have we called for that, for them to do that exact thing where we've complained about those tournaments? Why is this happening if you're not going to establish tag teams? And then they've, and then for years and years and years, it was just Roppongi 3K, which I love those guys, but they didn't ever build foils for them. Well, now we've got some other teams built up, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah, Kushida and Kevin Knight are doing stuff in America. Those guys can come in and challenge. Chris Bay and Ace Austin also doing stuff, still representing Bullet Club. So there's so many.
They need to call the Heavenly Butterflies is what they need to call Tony Donati and Babu Andre.
There's so many great junior teams that they use in the tournament, even just around the world. You mentioned Machine Guns, who are the current strong openweight tag team champions, as well as the Impact Tag champions. There's so many great teams that could come in and have great programs with Catch 2-2. So semi-main event, Taichi and Will Ospreay, possibly the battle for Miho Abe's heart. We'll see if she gets involved, but who you got here?
One thing I loved Will Ospreay said, he's just four guys, when you break it down, it's just four losers. You guys lost every single multi-man tag team match on the way up to this tournament or to this big show. He's like, you're such losers that Suzuki abandoned and he didn't want you guys. Literally, all you guys do is lose. And then he was like, and then the last time you and I were in a title shot, I beat you. I beat you every time we wrestle. He's like, so what more could I ever take from you? You guys are just four losers. That's literally what you are. That being said, I do find it hard to believe that Taichi is going to beat Will Ospreay. Anything's possible, of course.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it depends on like how far do you want to go with this redemption rebuild of Will Ospreay? Do you want to break him down? Do you want to break him down to like, the very bottom? Like have him lose here to Taichi and he really has to scrape and claw to get his way back to Kenny?
I don't know if I would say losing to Taichi is like the bottom of the barrel, but it's quite a huge setback considering where he was just a few months ago. Right?
Yeah. I don't necessarily mean like bottom of the barrel because it's Taichi, but just like I think, like you're saying, everybody's expecting Will to win this match because clearly the story is Will needs to win. He needs to do all his stuff to get back in the rankings to get a shot at Kenny Omega for the U.S. title. And I don't think anybody's giving Taichi a chance. But like you mentioned, all those comments of Ospreay saying, "You're a loser. I beat you. Like you guys have lost all the multi-man matches." It kind of makes it feel like Ospreay's getting too cocky. He's overlooking Taichi. He has his sights set on Kenny Omega, and Taichi could pull the upset. We've seen him utilize that Gato clutch for quick near fall wins. He could catch Ospreay in the stretch plum. He could hit a Black Mephisto. It can come out of nowhere, and I think it could be intriguing to have Taichi pull this upset.
I agree with you. And, and I'm not saying that from a company line. Like, for instance, like Kevin Kelly does a really great job, like being real, but also kind of straddling that kayfabe company line. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's not what this is. I genuinely do think that there is a narrative and an interesting story that could be told and a compelling story if Taichi wins. Kind of like how I pitched Kano beating Naito, even though they didn't go that way. But I also think the smart money is on Ospreay. I just, I feel like if Ospreay were to lose, of course, that's a setback, and then there's definitely a narrative you could tell. But I'm also thinking like he probably should beat Taichi to reestablish himself and then move forward to whatever's next, because they've clearly got some sort of 12-month plan in place. Who knows what the relationship is like with AEW right now? I couldn't tell you, but clearly there's some sort of intention for them to do him and Kenny again down the line, whether that's sooner or later. I think that he probably needs to pick up the win here, and I feel like it's one of those things where like it'd do more damage than good if he lost, personally. But he could lose, and that might not be a bad way to go. But I think that the smart money's on Will Ospreay winning.
Yeah, I'm going to go, I'll see with a smart choice here, Ospreay, but I would not be surprised if Taichi pulls the upset. And then the main event with Naito versus Shota Umino. We had a question from Rambo and Slab Pig. Do you think the Naito versus Shota feud continues past this one-on-one match, or is it likely to be settled at Sapporo? If so, what would you like to see each guy get up to between now and New Japan Cup season? Are both men's lock for that tournament?
Well, I think first and foremost, Tetsuya Naito has a date with Destiny with one Kijimuto in the Tokyo Dome. And based on that there's other things we could take into consideration, but based on that one main parameter, I think that he's probably got to pick up the win here regardless and kind of go into that match on a winning streak. Also, I think Umino is sort of as good as Umino's looked. He's had great matches. His body's in great shape. He's got good music, good look. I do think that there is something missing. I don't know what it quite is. I think he's got charisma. He's good on the mic. He's got it factor. I'm not saying that he's not, I'm not saying like he's like, oh, there's something missing and he's never going to have it. But I think he hasn't connected all the dots just yet. I don't think he's fully formed. And I kind of felt that way, just to kind of give you an example, in a different way. I felt similar about Great O'Khan when he first showed up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's a little bit of growth that was still needed. I think that Naito beating Umino will be a learning experience and will kind of kickstart the real trajectory of his story, because we thought that was going to start off when he lost to Ospreay, but that's sort of been put on the back burner, and he hasn't done much since then. This is the first real, true major feud that he's had that's been built over, since December, essentially, going all the way back to the Road to New Beginning. And they can pick this back up somewhere down the line, whether that is in the New Japan Cup or somewhere else, I don't know. But I do think Naito needs to hand him his first loss, and then we can kind of rebuild the kid. And I do think it's going to continue past this. I don't know if it's going to be like an immediate rematch. It might be like later on in the G1. It might be one of those prolonged, spaced out feuds that New Japan and Gato are very famous for doing. As far as the New Japan Cup goes, are they both locks for it? I couldn't tell you. I would imagine so, but we don't even know what the format's going to be. We don't even know how many guys are going to be in the tournament. And for that reason, I couldn't tell you who's going to be in it.
Yeah, I mean, just based off of, obviously, it being Tetsuya Naito and the way they're pushing Umino, I would expect both these guys to be in New Japan Cup. And to me, it kind of screams first round match for New Japan Cup. You have Umino lose here, and then he could pull that night one upset and beat Naito in the first round of the New Japan Cup and get him out of there. Then you build to a third matchup with Umino and Naito. So yeah, I think this is kind of the first of matches in their quote unquote rivalry. Like, it's not going to be your traditional, Western rivalry where, all right, they have this match this month and then they're going to have an immediate rematch in the next month. And it's kind of this whole back and forth. I think it's going to be the more New Japan style where it's, spaced out. So they'll have this match here in February, then they'll do the New Japan Cup thing, and then maybe they won't have the third match until like G1. And so it's kind of spread out throughout the year. So yeah, I think we're both in an agreement with the winner. I think, with Naito having that matchup with Keiji Muto, he's definitely has to pick up the win here.
Breaking news. I don't know. It's breaking news right now. Maybe, do you want to wait for the news to get this breaking news, or you want me to tell you right now?
Tell me right now, since we're in between going to the next show.
So we'll talk about it during the news. Obviously, Kota Ibushi, free agent, no longer with New Japan. They announced him for GCW this past week, or earlier today, and they did announce that his first major show back is going to be at Bloodsport 9, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport 9. Jeremy, what's the one match you would want to see at Bloodsport for Kota Ibushi if you could have any dream opponent anywhere in the world for this guy right now? Let's think of a Wrestler of the Year contender.
Wrestler of the Year contender in Bloodsport? I don't know. Who is it?
We are getting Kota Ibushi versus Speedball Mike Bailey.
Wow.
Yeah, bro.
Oh, man.
Yeah, bro. Even though we might not be spending much more time talking about Kota Ibushi on the show.
Yeah, they also they just sent the email out from Tokon Shop Global saying, get your Ibushi merch now because it's going to be gone in 5 days.
Well, I never bought any to begin with, so that's convenient. But
man,
we're getting him in Speedball, bro.
Man.
Too bad I don't want to go back to LA. Otherwise, I'd go see that show.
I know. It's like the first time since like 2017 that, at least I'm not going out to Mania weekend.
Bro, I have no interest or intention to go to WrestleMania weekend.
Yeah, man. Maybe if it was on the East Coast, but yeah, flying all the way.
If it was here, if it was like in Philadelphia or something, maybe I might go, or Chicago. I don't know.
But but going all the way to LA, yeah.
I'm gonna go to LA to watch a subpar indie scene. Come on.
I know you got Ibushi and a Speedball Mike Bailey running around all weekend.
That sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah. So let's talk about night 2 of the New Beginning in Sapporo. Will happen the next day, February 5th. Same building, Hokkaido Prefectural Sports Center. Show open up will have United Empire, Francesco Akira, TJP, Great Okan, Will Ospreay. They'll take on Just 4 Guys. Then we'll have Desperado, Suzuki, Ren Narita, and Yuto Nakashima taking on the House of Torture. Hiroshi Tanahashi and Master Wato will take on Kenta and Taiji Ishimori. Then we'll have ELP, Gato, and Jay White taking on the GOD team of Hikuleo, Jado, and Tama Tonga. Then we'll have Okada and Yano teaming up with Taguchi and Shota Umino to take on Bushi, Sanada, Shingo, and Tetsuya Naito. And then the three big matchups on this night. First, the sixth match of the evening will be for the IWGP Tag Team titles as Bishamon, Goto, and Yoshihashi will defend against TMDK's Mikey Nichols and Shane Haste. Semi-main event will be the NJPW World Television title match as Zack Sabre Jr. makes his first defense against the Stone Pitbull Tomohiro Ishii. And then our main event for this evening will be for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title as the champion Hiromu Takahashi looks to make his first defense against Direct Drive Yo.
Yeah, so again, echoes many of the same sentiments that I had on the previous night. I think that top to bottom, these multi-man tag team matches look really good. Again, if we were looking for an angle alert, it's more likely to be on the 125 show than it is on the 124 show.
2-4 instead of 2-5.
God, yeah, sorry. I'm thinking of like last week's Koraukuen Hall still. Yeah, the 2-4 and the 2-5. So the 2-5 is probably going to be the more likely one to have angles. But let's look at these top three matches.
Yeah, so first up, the tag team title match of Bishamon against TMDK. Like we mentioned, they've done a great job kind of building up the heat and rivalry between these two teams throughout the road to new beginning. And, you know, TMDK, they're, like you mentioned earlier, they're on a hot streak. They've gelling really well together. I could see Haste and Nichols pulling the upset here in beating Bishamon in their first defense.
You're not alone on that, and I think there's a lot of people pulling for that to be the outcome. Now, this TMDK team did really well in the World Tag League, and they ended up just kind of slightly getting eliminated out of the finals, but that was very much in play going down the last couple nights of the tournament. There are a lot of people that are saying that they kind of need to pick up the win here to kind of stay relevant and be mainstay players, because if they take the loss here, it's a pretty big setback. That's two huge setbacks for this team in a row, and they've got a lot of momentum on their side. So I see a lot of people out there kind of predicting them to win. My counter argument to that, and I'm sort of on the fence. I think this is as close to a 50-50 proposition as you could present out of all these matches. Bishamon have been a very successful tag team. Obviously, they're back-to-back World Tag League tournament winners, but they have never really had prolonged, successful heavyweight tag team title reigns. And for that reason, you might want to argue, like, for them to kind of be seen in that same realm as, like, say, your Briscoes, your FTR, your Usos, your, Young Bucks, they kind of need to have a definitive title reign. And this might be the time to sort of establish that, you know?
Yeah, and we're kind of seeing that with a lot of the titles. I feel like they're trying to establish some longer title reigns, and New Japan's not known for its tag team division, but they've done a great job of building up Bishamon over these last several years now. Got the big win over FTR in the Tokyo Dome. So yeah, I think it could make a ton of sense for them to get the win here. I don't think it hurts Haste or Nichols because Sabre's getting pushed. They're doing a whole story with Vegeta. So I think TMDK will still be in the spotlight, and Haste and Nichols will be fine if they lose. But it does just feel like the momentum swing is with TMDK and Haste and Nichols. So I'm going to go with them getting the upset and winning titles here.
I'm going to ride with you too. I don't know if I would call it an upset, but I agree. I think that they should pick up the win here. And here's the main reason why. I think it just makes more business sense to establish another top-tier tag team. This company isn't one that's known for having a strong tag team division. And when you do have a definitive tag team, I think it's a good idea to award them and establish them. So you kind of have them in play when it comes time to have those titles in big matches at different periods of the year. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And if you have an FTR available to you once or twice a year, and then you've got an Aussie Open, and then you've got a TMDK, and then you've got a Bishamon. That's a pretty healthy tag team division, not to mention what's going on with the Renaissance down in the junior division. I think that it's nothing but beneficial if you put the straps on them now, as opposed to making them wait, doing the whole redemption thing. I just don't think that makes a lot of sense for these guys, especially since there's so much momentum behind Team DK to begin with. Bishamon are not going to be damaged in any way if they lose. And I guess neither would Team DK, but they also wouldn't be established. Bishamon are already kind of established. Let's establish another tag team. Let's get this division rolling. Let's do it.
Exactly. And also, too, similar situation with Catch 2-2. They established a lot of heavyweight tag teams in this past World Tag League that could defend, could challenge TMDK. There's obviously an Aussie Open matchup that's there. They've been building a rivalry with those guys on Strong and in Japan. So I think that's kind of a big money match for some point in this year. So yeah, I really like the outlook of TMDK as a tag champs. So then the TV title match, Zack Sabre Jr. against Ishii, 15-minute time limit, first defense of the title since Zack won it January 4th at the Tokyo Dome, defeating Ren Narita. We've seen what Sabre and Ishii matches are all about. Like you mentioned earlier, we were live in New Orleans for the Rev Pro title match with Sabre and Ishii. These guys always have amazing bangers. The Wrestle Kingdom match, like you mentioned too. So I expect another great matchup between these guys. But I think, like we mentioned, TMDK, they're hot right now. I think Sabre's going to retain here.
Yeah, I love this matchup. I love when these two guys wrestle one another. But let's face it, not only is it Zack Sabre Jr.'s first title defense of a fledgling new title, new concept, but it's Tomohiro Ishii. And yeah, they might put a never title on the guy, and they might use him as a utility player, but they're not going to have him beat Zack Sabre Jr. and go with the title in 2023.
Yeah, no way.
And if you think I'm crazy on that, just go take a look at his records. Go take a look at his performance in singles matches and multi-man matches. And, I really feel like that never six-man tag team run was sort of like a signifier to us that, like, we are downcycling this guy. We've seen, if they'd wanted him to be in play for the title, they would have had him beat Ren Narita in the first matchup of the first round in the first place. They didn't do that. This is not a guy that they plan to have carry the big brown, as I like to call it.
Oh, man.
So, I love Ishii. Do I think that putting Ishii in hard-hitting 15-minute matches sounds incredible? Yes. Do I think that, Obari and Sugabayashi and, like, Geto and, all those guys. Who else am I missing? Who else is on the management team with the IWGP committee?
Obari.
There's Obari, Sugabayashi, and Kadani.
Yes.
Yeah. Do I think that these four men believe in Ishii like I do? No.
Those four guys?
Yes. One of them is I, one of them is W, the other one's G, one of them is P, and that's the committee. But, I think Zach's winning here.
Yeah. Then the main event, junior title match, Ticking Time Bomb Hiromu versus Yo. Got some questions here from MJ Does PR. Says, I have a prediction. Yo is going to beat Hiromu so Hiromu can have bizarre adventures at his junior festival. And then he says he has a request. Do your best, Kevin Kelly, and sell me on Wato versus Yo for the junior title.
So I am actually looking forward to this match for the reasons we mentioned earlier. I think they've done a pretty good job building it up. Plus, it has been a while since Hiromu's had the title. I will say this. I was disappointed the last time these two guys had a major title match against one another. Since then, they've had some Super Junior matches against each other that have really delivered, especially the one from the last December Super Juniors from two back. That one was really great. So we know they can deliver if prompted and allowed to. And I'm hoping that we get that more so that than we did the first time we saw them fight for the title. I don't think Yo's winning here, considering the fact that Hiromu's about to face Amakusa. Is that how you say his name?
I think
Amakusa?
Yeah.
Amakusa?
Amakusa.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to drop a title to Yo, Marty Onetti, before he fights somebody in the Tokyo Dome in the third from the top. I don't think that's happening. Also, there is a junior festival, and like it's Hiromu's baby, and I just don't see him putting over Yo and putting the strap on him, and then also being involved in the All-Star Junior Festival. So not likely, but hey, if you're right, MJ, we will pay you all the respect and let you do a victory. We'll let you send in a pre-recorded victory lap dunking on both of us on this show. How about that?
Yeah, I don't think Yo really stands a chance here. But like you said, based off what we've seen of their last encounters, it should be a great matchup. But yeah, I think this is all Hiromu here. Like you mentioned, there's so many signs that are saying it makes sense for Hiromu to get the win here. And I don't know how to do a Kevin Kelly and sell Wato versus Yo.
I don't know how to do a Kevin Kelly either. Like, I've never sat there and listened to him and thought, like, I have thought, like, I've listened to him and thought, my God, I could never do what this man fucking does. This is incredible. That's usually the thought that I have. Mm-hmm. But I do have a background in sales, so let me try and sell you very quickly on Wato. In the off chance that Yo were to win the title from Hiromu Takahashi, that would be like a major, major, major upset, right? Mm-hmm. And then in the event that Yo or that Wato does the same thing in defeating Ishimori in a singles match to become the number one contender, you're talking about two of the biggest underdogs right now in the entirety of the division, two guys that have their rabid fan bases and supporters and people that really believe in them against all odds, kind of crescendoing with all of the momentum, all the everything that basically would be behind them with those two massive wins converging against one another in a do or die situation, because we've seen both of these guys at the lowest of lows, and now they would be at the highest of highs, and whoever took that loss would be fucked. Can you imagine? Like, and then not only that, the guy that wins, that would be a huge feather in their cap to basically be the one that's like, nah, son, like, I know you're rising, but like, you're not going to rise above me. That would be something in that event. If it were to happen, I would be all in on Wato versus Yo. It's never going to happen. But if it were to happen, like, that story would be incredible. Two guys who cannot afford to lose being thrust in a situation where one of them has to lose. Oh, that's incredible storytelling.
Well, you did a great job, putting it together, selling that story. But like I said, it's not going to happen. But if they wanted to happen, you got the story right there. Well, let's move on now to New Japan Strong.
The last ever New Japan Strong is dead.
Well, the last of this form, we'll have some updates.
What does Taka say?
You already died.
Yeah, you already died, New Japan Strong Nemesis, Saturday, January 28th, 8 p.m. Eastern, number 4.
We'll talk about what's happening with Strong in the news, but this is the last of Strong in this format.
Bro, this show. What
a way to go out.
I think I made that joke last week, but I was being facetious. But bro, what a wait! Oh my God, they subverted the expectations, and they really sent us off.
This must have been the end of the tapings, because like this crowd was dead.
Bro, I 100% believe that this was not the end of the taping. I 100% believe that this was in the middle of the show before they caught their second win and went home happy with like something bigger and better, because there was much better stuff on the show. I totally think that like the match with like Eddie Kingston that Jay White came out, that's what ended the show.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think that this was like the like eighth match, like this match was probably like the middle of the road. Like Fred Rosser and Peter Avalon were in that Hulk Hogan Madison Square Garden Saturday Night Main Event, middle of the card spot. They were the number 6 match, and nobody gave a fuck.
Yeah. Oh man. So we had Blake Christian defeating Kota. I mean, fine opening match. No heat.
No heat. Nothing I could say there. The only thing I'd say that was good, Blake's putting on some size. And he came from behind, and he did some really incredible turnbuckle offense. And if you don't know what I mean, maybe go watch the match, because he just kept throwing this dude into the turnbuckle to set up his finish.
Yeah.
Also, apparently he's in a blood feud with Juice Robinson, who was not on the show, and cut a promo about how he's going to get his hands on Juice.
Yeah, they wrestled on the last tour, and Juice cheated to beat him.
Well, he's tired of being all heart, Blake Christian, and maybe it's time for him to become no heart.
Then the second match of the evening was Mystico from CMLL defeating Mysterioso, 12 minutes and 8 seconds.
I will say this, and maybe you disagree with me, Jeremy. My favorite lucha match in the history of New Japan Strong, personally.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really fun matchup. I just wish the crowd was into it more. I feel like Mystico was really killing himself and doing some really cool stuff and getting like very little reaction to the crowd. Obviously, they weren't really familiar with Mystico. Bro. I mean, this guy is a legend in Mexico.
How can they not know Mystico? He was in WWE for years. But
he was Sin Cara, and then they switched Sin Caras, and
we played with him on SmackDown versus Raw for years and years and years. And you know what? This man was used to. This is how you know this man came from WWE. This crowd was dead, and he didn't give a fuck. He was going out there and giving it all like it was Saturday night, or like it was like a Hulu main event. Yeah, like a Velocity taping. He was on Main Event once again, working, Tyson Kidd, just fucking killing it.
Yeah. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. Mysterioso got a chance to shine here, and he was really, kind of the bigger bruiser here. Mystico having to fight from underneath, but having some really kind of cool comeback moves. Hit, the big Spanish fly off the top, which is one of his finishers.
That was awesome.
Mysterioso kicked out of that, which it all built the La Mystica, the head scissors into the arm bar.
Mysterioso's in some ways, and I mean this in the most respectful and affectionate way, kind of like a muscle-up copycat of Mystico.
Yeah.
So seeing Mystico and him lock it up, very, very fun. It reminded me a lot of the great Mystico Muscle Man lucha matches we've seen. What I mean by that is like him and like Ultimo Guerrero and Mephisto and different people. So yeah, we've kind of seen this same archetype played out many, many times. And when you have a great base like Mysterioso, that allows Mystico to do amazing things. We've seen him do that with like Cavernario and Volador, and he was flying in this match. It was awesome.
Yeah,
I loved it.
I felt like it was Fantasticomania.
Yeah, bro, this got me ready. 12 minutes, 8 seconds. I'm an easy 3.5 on this one.
Yeah, it was real fun.
Match of the night.
Yes.
So that should probably tell you how I feel about this main event.
So main event, the strong openweight title, Mr. No Days Off, Fred Rosser.
Whoa. Before we start, video package.
Yeah, I got a nice little video package showing what went down between Rosser and Peter Avalon. That led to the match. Yeah, Fred Rosser defeating Pretty Peter Avalon to retain the strong open weight title, 12 minutes and 2 seconds. And,
oh, bro, this match sucked. This match sucked. This program sucked. And I'm ready to say it, Jeremy. I've been a little bit hesitant. I know we want to be respectful of the wrestlers. And I do. Listen, we've been very complimentary of Fred Rosser as a performer, what he has brought to the table, all of his everything that he has improved upon with his game. And yeah, we make fun of his promos from time to time, but we've never questioned his heart or anything like that. But I will say this title reign is a fucking flop. There has not been one single compelling or entertaining title defense since he won that belt from Filthy Tom Lawler. And this is just another in a string of disappointing title defenses that I've been forced to sit through.
Yeah, I don't think it's Fred's fault. It's definitely, I think, the booking.
Somewhat, but I don't know about all that.
Well, I think part is the booking. I mean,
I agree.
You look at Tom's reign. Tom was defending against Brody King and Narita and all these like great guys. And who have they been giving Fred Rosser? Like Peter Avalon. Who else has he defended against?
Yehai.
Yeah, Fred Yehai, which had like no build.
Kratos.
Yeah, like they did not give him the best challengers. Again,
all right. I agree with you. If Tom Lawler was put in that same spot, he would have built those matches up to where they were really fucking compelling, and the matches would have been really good. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, which also Tom has the skill set to do that. And it's clear that maybe Fred doesn't. And so as the booker, you need to protect your champion.
That's true.
And
help. Great point.
And help create the compelling feud if you know that he's not going to be able to do it.
The old Paul Heyman, hide the negative, accentuate the positives. There's a lot of positives with Fred Rosser, but there are some negatives. There's things that maybe are not part of his skill set. I don't think that they've been accentuating the positives necessarily.
Right.
Now, this match started off, and one thing that was, it just was awkward because Peter Avalon, who, by the way, is shredded, he's in great shape.
Yeah.
Is he officially with AEW? Because they announced him as part of AEW, but I didn't think he was like back with them.
Yeah, I think he's like on a per date basis, I believe, with them.
Well, I guess he's allowed to just advertise he's with them because they're like, AEW, Peter Avalon. But he's yoked. And then they bring out Fred Rosser, and then Peter Avalon gets on the mic. He's like, shut off the music. And then they do it. I don't know why. I think he probably paid off the people in Vermont, Hollywood, or, the production staff. And then he starts cutting a promo, but like the promo is awkward because it's like real insidery. Because he's like, oh, Mr. No Days Off, Mr. I'm quitting the business, Mr. Take a week off, take a month off, take years off. He's like, millions of dollars. And he's obviously alluding to something to where Fred Rosser was out of the business after the WWE stint. But it was awkward because his music was going, and then his music wasn't going, and then he cut the promo, and then they're fighting, and then Fred Rosser beat him, and then Fred Rosser goes back to doing the posing. It was just, in theory, it sounds maybe like it could have been cool, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It was so awkward. It's like, yeah, he came out, and then, yeah, this guy's cutting a promo on him. He mops the floor with him, throws him out the ring, finishes his entrance. It's like,
and then they lock up.
Why do I need to see this? Like, he just mopped this dude in like a few seconds, threw him over.
and then the ring bells, and they go into the classic catch as catch can collar and elbow style lockup. I'm like, what? Actually, here's the thing. I don't remember if they actually did that, but that's just what I'm imagining happened next was like, they announced them, they did the intros, and then these two guys circled each other and then locked up.
Yeah.
After they'd already physically touched before that. I don't know. It was weird.
Again, not a ton of crowd heat here.
The crowd did not care.
Rosser called himself the people's champion. Well, he was not the people's champion on this night because
we have I don't want to call him a friend, but there was a mutual acquaintance of ours. I won't even say his name on there because I don't want anyone to look him up and give him any sort of publicity. But there's someone that I know that like posts, one of these fans who like is not a fan of New Japan, but just like a troll. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like one of those troll wrestling fans, which is most of them. Not you guys listening. You guys are smart. I'm talking about like the others, and you know what I'm fucking talking about. But he posted this thing that like showed Peter Avalon attacking Fred Rosser, and he's like, "Oh my God, they've got Peter Avalon challenging for a title in New Japan. They've really fallen off." And like normally I wouldn't respond to this kid shit, but I was like, "It's fucking New Japan Strong," and like no one acknowledged me like I was Roman. No one acknowledged me. But like there was like 40 comments like, oh my fucking God, these guys, they've lost. Like it's people that literally have no clue about Japanese wrestling. They just see a blue mat. They see Peter Avalon. And they're like, New Japan, Peter Avalon, blue mat. This company has lost its way.
Oh, man.
But like, I don't know. At the same time, if you're trying to attract those kinds of people, is this what you want? Do you want to promote Peter Avalon?
Right.
Holding up a gold belt in your cerulean blue mat? I don't know.
I think this main event in this episode is the perfect reason for why what's happening with Strong is what's happening.
Yeah. So anyways, to make a long story short, Fred Rosser tapped out Peter Avalon, stood tall. I think Peter Avalon might have had some hope spots, but it really did kind of feel like Fred Rosser ran through him pretty much.
Yeah.
And then after the match, Kenta came out. They had a stare-off. Fred Rosser, for the first time in his career, cut the promo about leaving with the 3 boots on correctly. 2 boots on his feet and 1 boot up his ass. And he looked around at the crowd and no one responded in any way. That's like one of those. I remember listening to Steve Austin talking about some catchphrase that he tried to get over, and he tried it for like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But what was it?
Oh, man, I can't remember what it was.
I don't remember what it was either, but he was like, yeah, I had to put that one on the back burner. No one's responding to it. Like, we love you, Fred, but you might want to put the 3 boots shit, that shtick. You might want to go the way of Stone Cold and learn to call it quits on that one. I don't know. The people don't seem to be popping for the boot up the ass shtick like you're Red Foreman. I don't know.
Oh, man.
Actually, you know what? If he did it like if he delivered the line like he was Red Foreman, I bet you it would get over.
It'd be hilarious. Oh,
He's
man.
like, I can think of a place I like to put it. Up your ass.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so yeah, that was the last version of Strong and in this format, and what a way to go out.
Yeah, so next week we've got the next tour of Strong. No, we don't. So let's jump into the news, and we got some things coming up here. So I guess I'll jump into it. The Japanese government has officially decided to lift the COVID-19 restrictions on all events. It will take effective immediately. This was earlier this week. Therefore, audiences are allowed to cheer loudly, even at packed venues, wearing face masks. Now, keep in mind, any particular venue in any particular part of Japan can impose their own mandates. Prefectures could still impose their own mandates, but these are the guidelines coming from the Japanese government. So we expect, by and large, most wrestling events moving forward, and this is pretty much across the board, not just wrestling, there's not going to be, this prohibition on people cheering. So we're pretty much done. We're moving into the period where we can get back to full cheering crowds next year. By the time Muto's retirement, Tokyo Dome comes up, if they're selling full-fledged like tickets, I don't know how many they're going to do, but like let's say it's 40 or 50,000 or whatever, all those people will be able to cheer.
Yeah, which will be awesome. We've made it through.
We've made it through. Like, it's fine. Like, the horror is over. We are on the other side, thank God. And COVID's over. It doesn't exist anymore. Going back to the New Japan Strong talk. So there was an update this past week, and I guess I'll try and paraphrase it because there's a lot of text here. But essentially, moving forward, all events that take place from New Japan Pro Wrestling in the U.S. are going to be carrying the branding of New Japan Strong. So New Japan Strong is officially, I guess, usurping the title New Japan of America. In addition to that, the weekly TV taping format of Strong is going to shift to a dual model. So that means very likely, it sounds like there won't be, hypothetically, monthly TV tapings that persist for 4 to 5 weeks or whatever.
Correct.
Instead, we're going to have Strong Live and Strong On Demand. Now, this sounds confusing. Let me throw a caveat out there. This is all happening on New Japan World. This is not a separate streaming service. Some of this might take place on Fight as well, but it's mostly all going to be on World. Strong Live will be events like Battle in the Valley on February 18th from San Jose that's sold out. And these are going to be pay-per-view events that will be airing in English on Fight TV or in Japanese on New Japan World pay-per-view. And so if you want to watch these events live when they occur from America, you pay pay-per-view for it. Otherwise, they will then air as part of a weekly 4-part basis through the month as New Japan Strong, very similar to what we've seen from New Japan Strong in the past, right? Mm-hmm. This model is going to continue with New Japan Capital Collision in Washington, D.C., and Collision in Philadelphia from the world-famous 2300 Arena. The dual model will give fans on a budget the chance to stay up to date with the hottest action in the U.S. through their regular World subscription, while the very best live experience on the planet waits on pay-per-view as it happens.
So essentially what they're doing is they are essentially doing what they do on Access TV. So on Access, they took Wrestle Kingdom, they broke it up into the 4 or 5 episodes on Access TV. So they'll be doing that with these pay-per-views. So Battle in the Valley, it'll be an 8-match card, and then they'll break that up into 4 weeks of TV, quote unquote, on New Japan World the following month. So if you don't want to pay the pay-per-view price to watch it live, you will have to wait a month, similar to people who watch Access TV, and then each week they'll probably air 2 or 3 matches from the previous month's pay-per-view.
So, there are things that I guess you and I should talk about before we move on with the rest of the news. Questions I have and just general thoughts. So, number one, I think that this will be actually, before we move on to that, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. We had heard from various sources and people that were in the know, who had talked to people that were in the know, and just from all the inferences, that there was some sort of forthcoming announcement about New Japan and New Japan Strong that was related to Honor Club. Mm-hmm. That has not happened. It seems to be, based on this information we've received and based on the reports, that TV Asahi is involved in this.
Yeah, they are sending their production crew to Battle in the Valley because they talked about what's one thing they wanted to improve was the production on the on the American side of the shows, and so that's what they're doing. They're bringing the TV Asahi film crew for Battle in the Valley. We're going to get the traditional, New Japan production camera crew for that show. So we're going to get better quality shows here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that means. We haven't heard anything from Tony Khan since that last media scrum. Mm-hmm. They've been very quiet about anything else that pertains to Honor Club. It doesn't mean that there won't still be some sort of New Japan involvement, but there is wild speculation that there'd be some sort of amalgamation between the tapings or the 2 shows. And right now, that doesn't seem to be the case. It might change. I don't know.
Yeah, my guess is that New Japan Strong wrestlers will probably just be involved on the Ring of Honor show.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And it might even be a good idea to have some sort of cross promotion between the 2 products and have talent on both shows going back and forth. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's a possibility too. There might even be potentially still an avenue where they could show, in the same way how AEW Dynamite and other AEW products are shown on New Japan World, maybe there could be an avenue to have Strong shown on Honor Club. That's also on the table, I would suppose.
Yeah.
But it is very strange that seemed to be, near announcement, and then we never heard anything, and now we're getting this. So that's kind of interesting. As far as the benefits, the pros and the cons, hypothetically speaking, it sounds like with this all being pay-per-view and them upping the production, right?
Mm-hmm.
Them bringing in TV Asahi, this is all positive. And in theory, that is going to be the case. I mean, if you've got shows like Battle in the Valley, you've got stars like Eddie Kingston, Kazuchika Okada, Jay White, Mercedes Moné, yada, yada, blase, blase. Sounds incredible, right? That's much better than what we've been getting from New Japan Strong to a certain degree. I just wonder how you can continue to do that around the regular domestic schedule that we have going. Like when tournament season comes around in like April, March, August, May, that's all going to become very difficult to sort of continue to do that. And so that also makes me wonder, how often is this happening? Is this are they going to try to do it monthly the way New Japan Strong had been previously and sort of just, fill that void? And even though they're saying it's new, it kind of just continues to be the same thing with upped production and better star power? Or is it more like a 4 to 5 time a year thing? Is it a quarterly thing? We don't really know yet.
Yeah, and with Capital Collision and Collision in Philadelphia, those are 2 back-to-back shows, a Saturday, Sunday. I think those are in March, I think.
Right.
So, I mean, that would be like 8 weeks of TV that they filmed there.
Right. And then the other thing, too, is like we've kind of complained in the past about what is their business model in the States? How do they make it profitable? And we've also talked about the business behind television. And with this being like a pay-per-view sort of thing, what's the price point? A, B, is it going to still feed into New Japan domestic proper? Because, okay, it's all well and good if you give us a standalone show that's high quality, but if it doesn't have tie-ins and long-lasting effects with the greater product, then it's still just sort of this thing on its own that stands alone. And I mean, that's great if that's what you want to do, but you're also asking people to pay $20, $25, $30, whatever it might be for a pay-per-view. Is it going to be worth it to people? How do you get the buzz behind that, the interest and everything? Also, it is great TV Asahi's coming with their production, but we've seen the snafus that have come from pay-per-view production in the U.S. when they weren't like ready to do it over the past year or so. Is that going to continue, or is that going to be remedied? These are all things that I'm very, very interested in with this whole thing.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a step in the right direction to have the TV Asahi crew come out and film it. As far as keeping the buzz up, I think, the thing that they have to do here is somehow get the big stars on these shows. And like you're mentioning, during New Japan Cup month, during Super Junior month, during G1 month, like it's going to be very hard to do that, but I think that's going to be the key. Like, you're going to continue to need to have a Will Ospreay. You're going to need to have your Ishis, your Suzukis, your Tanahashis, your Okadas. You're going to need those big marquee stars to attract people to these shows, which I do think overall that is a better way to get people in the building versus doing these strong tapings where you may or may not have some top domestic guys, and then you have it littered of all these indie guys or guys who are not really a part of New Japan. So I think it's almost kind of what they were doing before New Japan Strong happened, kind of back in like 2019, where
right
they were, they had the map and they were planning on doing all these U.S. tours, and they were going to have it in between tours, and they were planning to bring the bigger guys to these tours. In Tampa we had like Ibushi and Tanahashi and all these guys. So I think that kind of shifting back to having, like the whole thing is, less is more. Let's not do these weekly TV tapings and have it bad production and all these guys. Like, let's do a big pay-per-view production. Let's bring in all the big stars, and then let's just create a show similar to the Access show, similar to the show they do on New Japan, that New Japan World show they do. Let's do that and capture people that way versus doing these weekly Strong tapings in all these cities where you may get a hot crowd, you may get a cold crowd, you may have good production one taping, you may have bad production next taping. So I think it will help just create consistency as far as the quality. I think it will help draw fans because they're going to be having bigger talent. And if they can utilize, in tournament season, if they can utilize some of the Ring of Honor and AEW guys, if they can continue to pull in Eddie Kingston and people like that, Wheeler Utah, some of those crossover, Brody King, some of those guys onto these big pay-per-views. So I think that could help in between when they're having these big tournament seasons.
I'm sure we'll have more to discuss in the future. One thing I will say, we reserve the right on this show to cover it as we see fit. So if we think that we need to cover it live and get access to the pay-per-view and come on the air, we'll cover it that way. If we feel like it needs to be covered like New Japan Strong needs to be covered week to week for free on the New Japan World, we will do such. In other news, Kazuchika Okada followed up his Tokyo Sports MVP award by winning the Wrestler of the Year award and Match of the Year for his G1 final win over Will Ospreay on 8/18 for Weekly Pro Wrestling. This is the biggest fan voting award in Japan. Okada's 2022 win in the fan balloting is his fourth, having also won in 2012, 2013, and 2019. The top 10 in the voting were Okada, Kichimuto, Ospreay, Keito Kiyomiya, Kento Miyahara, Tetsuya Naito, El Desperado, Satoshi Kojima, Yuki Yoshiaka, and Kano. Ospreay won the foreign MVP award. The rest of the top 10 were Zack Sabre Jr., Jay White, Ninja Mac, Jonah, Drew Parker, Alex Zane, Tama Tonga, Chris Brooks, and Tekla. New Japan on January 20th, which was the Kazuchika Okada IWGP title win over Jay White from the Tokyo Dome, did 79,000 viewers with an 0.02, which is 28,000 viewers in the 18 to 49 demographic. It was the second straight week that New Japan in a worse time slot beat Impact 18 to 49. Last week's show with Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay from the Tokyo Dome did 81,000 with 19,000 in the 18 to 49 demographic. 1 year ago, when they aired a replay of the 2018 Omega versus Chris Jericho match, they did 88,000 viewers and 37,000 in 18 to 49. So, other news, Kota Ibushi is making his GCW debut at Bloodsport 9, as we discussed earlier, and will be competing at Spring Break 7. It will be Ibushi's first match anywhere in the world since October 2021. Next up, Take It to the Bank. Mercedes Moné was interviewed. Is this the interview that was recently uploaded on New Japan World a week or so ago?
No, this is a written interview they did of her that's on NJPW1972.com.
Hopefully it's better than the one that they posted online with the video packages. But yeah, check that out. It is available on NJPW1972.com. New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team title match has been signed. Motor City Machine Guns will be taking on the West Coast Wrecking Crew. And Adrian Quest, Josh Alexander, Mascara Dorada, and Rocky Romero versus Kevin Knight, Kushida, and the DKC and Volador Jr. were added to Battle in the Valley. There was an exclusive four-leaf clover match announcement with the approval of CMLL official. Azuka Rock, which is Rocky Romero, will be taking on Yuya Uemura for the CMLL World Historic Welterweight Championship only on the Chris Jericho Cruise. So this is a title that's very rare. Any CMLL title is very rarely defended outside of CMLL. I mean, I think New Japan during Fantastic Mania is one of the only prominent places it ever happens. Mm-hmm. So we will be seeing Rocky Romero defend that new title against Yuya Uemura. Kushida makes his Defy debut March 11th at Defy on top. And then finally Mox and who's Shaft?
Some Defy guy.
Okay. Mox and Shaft will battle ZSJ and Davey Richards at Defy Year 6 on February 11th, which sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah, kind of getting back to that Zack Sabre Jr. Mox match we were supposed to get in 2020. So we'll run through the questions now, then get to recommended match of the week. So the Dark Soldier says, not since Okada versus Buddy Matthews have I seen such a screw job. Kano clearly had Naito beaten in two different spots, a cocky pin that Red Shoes should have counted, and when Naito couldn't release a submission hold and Red Shoes didn't count. These freaking New Japan referees and screwing over outsiders. Doesn't that Doesn't this just seem you? What?
Steam you, like make you angry. I don't know. I didn't notice any of that. Did you notice any of that?
No, I just noticed, Shinny mopping the floor with Noah.
Why are you bringing up old shit? We were drinking on that Noah pack last week. You know what I'm saying? I got grief for that because you're not supposed to drink on a pack. You're supposed to smoke the pack. But I drink 6-pack, so I was drinking on that Noah pack. You know what I'm saying?
He also says, would you say this is the most exciting Okada's been in a long time? He's showing raw emotion and actually is in an angle. Not just, I hate to say this, going through the motions like he's been for a whole now.
I think he meant a while now, but yes. I think some of those, I don't know what the word is. I forget words all the time. Some of those criticisms are definitely valid, but I don't know if I don't go as hard on Okada as other people do. Like some people just are really harsh on the guy, and I think he's fantastic. But yes, I think this is the most exciting. This is probably, in my opinion, the most exciting thing that's been going on with Okada since maybe the Shibata feud.
Yeah, or the Kenny feud.
No, the Kenny feud was not exciting. The Kenny feud was exciting in the match. There was very little that ever happened between those guys outside of those ring ropes that was ever really exciting. I mean, I guess the time that Osprey, the time Omega winged angeled him through a table in the lead up to their Wrestle Kingdom match, but there was very little there was no angles, there was no heat. The heat was, we're the two fucking best and we're generational talents. We're gonna go out there and literally have the greatest matches of all time, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I think that, I could probably point to that one trilogy of matches that him and Tanahashi had in 2019 or 18 or whatever it was. But I don't know, man. To me, this might be the most heated thing that's happened with Okada since Shibata.
Yeah, it is great. His last question, he says, Muto versus Naito. Will Muto politic his way to a victory?
I don't say this as a New Japan fan because I'm not just a New Japan fan. I'm a wrestling fan. That would be a travesty, but it is not impossible.
Yeah.
Well, if you think about it for just half a second, the very fact that Tetsuya Naito is the guy that he's fighting is kind of a little bit sus.
Well, The Rock wasn't available.
Oh my God, that almost happened. That would have been so crazy. But okay, let's say if it had been say Okada, there's no way he could have won, right? So that's totally out the window. But is it impossible that Naito gets told by management that, hey, we're getting this huge fucking portion of the gate and payoff? You're putting over Muto? It's not impossible.
Right. Especially if Naito loses to Umino.
Bro, not even. They might have him go over Umino so he can lay down for Muto.
Yikes.
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying it's not that strange.
Yeah.
But I do think that would be fucking horrendous.
Yeah. Ghost of Doc Gonzo says, what were some of your favorite Briscoe matches / moments from their New Japan run?
I don't know if I have a lot of favorite moments because I don't know if I was paying as close attention to the I was watching New Japan at that time, but I wasn't watching the full shows. I was kind of cherry picking a lot of it. Them and Yano winning being the first never champions was probably one of the first really big moments. Them being on those Honor Rising shows were really great, but more for me was the New Japan going to America, going to the UK to do Global Wars and the what were the other shows called? There were the
War of the Worlds.
War of the Worlds shows. Specifically, the tag team match with them versus Okada and Nakamura stands out as being one of those really great, moments. And that's also a great match. And then probably their match with the Young Bucks, which if it had happened in America, probably would have been remembered much better. The crowd just didn't seem to be as receptive, but their IWGP title defense against the Young Bucks was really great.
Yeah, I also really enjoyed the program that they had with GOD. I think it was like the summer of 2019, which led to that big
second program, the last one.
Yeah, the second program where it ended in some kind of ladder match or ladder war.
That ladder match was all. The street fight was great too.
Yeah, they had a really great program at the end of 2019. It was following the Madison Square Garden 4-way match, so that was a lot of fun. He also asked, do you think that Okada/Kiyomiya match will end in a draw? I just can't see either company letting their world champion eat a clean loss to someone outside their own company.
Oh, that's funny. No, Kiyomiya is going to do a clean as a sheet fucking job for Okada. Do you know why? Because he's Kazuchika Okada, and this is New Japan Pro Wrestling, and not Noah.
Yeah, Kiyomiya's not facing the All Japan champion here.
Yeah, this is not equal footing. This would be like if it'd be like essentially if Roman Reigns stepped in the ring with
Josh Alexander.
That's a more appropriate.
Who are you gonna say?
Who's the GCW champion?
Oh, Nick Gage.
Yeah, Nick Gage. I was gonna say it was Nick Gage.
Oh my god!
It'd be like if he wrestled Josh Alexander, and they really built up Josh Alexander as like a serious, credible outside threat, and they built up a huge Madison Square Garden gate off of it. No one would be like talking about like how they need to like go 50-50 or whatever. It's just not gonna happen. Noah is a vastly smaller company. Yeah, they've got a much bigger parent company, but they're just. I mean, bro, they're struggling to draw on their regular ass shows without Muto on them. The big shows they do well. Those smaller cards, I mean, it's no comparison. And even with some of the struggles New Japan's had over the years, it's just not the same.
Yeah.
No, Kiyomiya is not going to draw with Okada. And if Kiyomiya beats Okada, it's only so Okada can beat him back in a much more stronger and definitive way. This is not me speaking as a New Japan fan. This is me speaking as a realist who likes wrestling.
Yeah.
It's not happening.
Yeah. Next question here from Barry Wall says, when it was announced that Carl Frederick signed for WWE, I saw some quotes from Clark Connors congratulating him and saying he hopes Carl can put a good word in for Clark. I know wrestlers are all about making money, but is this slightly disrespectful to New Japan? If my company paid a lot for me to upskill for years, and I was saying I want to my mate to put in a word for me in front of our rivals, you get what I'm saying?
No, because my company puts in a lot of money for me to up my skills and to get licenses, and I'm ready to fucking walk from there too. And I hope someone puts in a good word for me. You know why? Because in this world, this is a wrestling business. This is not wrestling markdom. You never be a mark for the company. You be a mark for yourself, in the famous words of Nick Jackson, a.k.a., Bruiser Brody-ism. No. Okay, I get it. Should he be, grateful for the training they provided him and the ability to travel and all that? But what the fuck are they doing for Clark Connors today? When's the last time you see Clark Connors in Japan? When's the last time you seen him win a singles match?
Right, and I think with this whole thing with Connors, and the whole training with him and Fredericks, we don't even know how much those guys get paid when they were young lions and doing the LA dojo stuff. So I get, he got into the dojo and did his training, but how much money were they really making?
Also, those guys are extremely sarcastic online, and it could have just been an offhanded, joking remark. You know what I mean? I don't think I would put a lot of stock into anything that they say. These are the same guys who are trying to sell us on the idea that Yuya Uemura is gone from New Japan.
Right, and Carl's
doesn't work.
Always taking pictures of Uemura online.
Right, but do I have a problem that he has offended New Japan? The IWGP, I don't give a fuck. I hope this guy gets his bag. The same way how I didn't care that Dragon Lee went to WWE, the same way I don't care that Jonah went to WWE, the same way I don't care that Carl Fredericks went there. I wouldn't, or that Kota Ibushi's a free agent, because ultimately these are all humans that need to feed their families and earn as much as they possibly can and do what's best for them. And if it happens to be here in the Cerulean Blue, great. If it happens to be somewhere else, fine. And do I care if they disrespect the company? Personally, I don't give a fuck.
Which plays into his next question. He says, also wanted your take on Clark, Alex, and Gabe. To me, it seems like they're still treated a bit attaboy, like when you rub a kid's hair for helping you out with some DIY. I almost feel like they should be happy to be there or get that feeling. Is this because so many guys should eventually leave? Or am I seeing or getting a wrong impression unique to me?
Nope, I think you're 100% right. I think that this is definitely a big issue, and I think that they're missing all the potential and upside that comes from those guys, and they've got killers waiting in the wings in Alex Coughlin and Gabe Kidd and Clark Connors and DKC and, Kevin Knight. And it is kind of like, okay, they gave Shibata this side project. Part of me wonders if they gave it to him so he wouldn't try to wrestle somewhere else. And then, he created these not created, but he helped craft and train these incredible wrestlers. And now they don't know what the fuck to do with them. Well, you better figure something out. Otherwise, they're going to be wrestling on TNT or USA very shortly, getting paid a lot more than you could have ever paid them. You're going to have footed the bill on training these guys to go work for your big competition. Figure it out.
Right. I love what they're doing with, Vegeta and Umino coming back and, Great Okan coming back. But, they talk about fast tracking. These guys are finished products. I think it was kind of ridiculous that, Coughlin and Kidd, their record in the World Tag League, these guys they're still treated essentially like young lions. I think it's time that these guys need to get back in Japan and they need to be involved in some big programs. They need to be winning some big singles matches. All these guys are great. Okay, 890 says, who do you think could replace Jay as a top heel if he leaves, or do you think that won't happen? They won't have a blatantly heel top guy anymore?
Anybody. I'm sorry. I kind of mean that. I do think Jay White is supremely talented. I think Jay White is so good in so many different ways. Amazing look, amazing promo, amazing in-ring skills. List goes on and on. But I mean, being the top heel, it's definitely difficult. It's definitely a skill, but there's a lot of guys in this company that could be the top heel, no problem whatsoever, and might even draw more, might even have better connections with the fans and the audience and be a bigger deal than him personally.
Yeah.
I mean, Shingo could be top heel.
Yeah, and from a foreign standpoint, Zack Sabre Jr. is right there.
Right. Okada could be top heel. There's any number of guys that could be the top heel in this company. It's not all just about Jay White. I mean, he's just another guy. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way, but I mean it more like in the territorial sense. Guys come, guys go, the show goes on. You know what I mean?
He's not a larger-than-life kind of act that if he leaves New Japan, we're cooked. He's a great wrestler. He was a main eventer, a top star, former champion. But if he leaves, it's going to be just like when AJ Styles left. It'll be just like when Nakamura left. They're going to get somebody else up and running.
Kota Ibushi just left. We're fine.
Yeah.
Company's fine. Kenny Omega left. Company's fine.
Yeah. Also asked, when do you think Yuya and Tsuji should come back before Wrestle Kingdom 18, before G133? Both guys are a couple years older than Shota and Narita and seem to be highly praised by people that have watched them on their excursions.
I'd be fine with any time. I don't have much more insight beyond that. Whenever the company thinks is going to be appropriate to plug them in. My main thing is I hope they get set up for success. We've seen guys come back and struggle from excursion, and I think it's better when they have all their ducks in a row and they're fully ready for it.
Yeah, I think the come back when you have a plan, a 12-month plan for both of these guys.
Agreed.
Next question, VE30. Do you think Tanahashi will be the challenger for Battle in the Valley?
I think that would be a bad call. I mean, the tickets are sold. You could do that. They've done it in the past in America, not for the title, but we were there. They did it in Dallas at the G1, so it would be a rematch. You know, it'd probably be good. It's always good between those two guys, but there's just no panache. There's no sizzle to that match in any way. I'd rather them do a fresh matchup of some sort or something that's a little bit more, just something that has more prestige, or I don't know if not prestige, but just something more, you know?
Yeah, something that's a little bit more like questioning who's going to win kind of thing.
It doesn't even have to be that. Like I threw out some examples of Ring of Honor guys I think they could do that would be enticing. But like, okay, let's throw it out there. Let's say they did like a Josh Alexander, a Speedball Mike Bailey, for example, some Impact guys. They're not going to win, but that's exciting. It's like a first-time matchup. They could even do a rematch, but I mean, Tanahashi's fighting Kenta on the undercard in special singles non-title matches, and even if he won that match, I don't know if that qualifies him in kayfabe to be the guy to get the title shot. I don't think now's the right time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like the Kota Tanahashi thing's kind of past. Like, I'm sure they could still have an incredible matchup, but I think like the juice is we've gotten all the juice out of the squeeze with those guys wrestling each other in the main events. Next set of questions here from Hawaiian Punch BB says Hiromu said that he wanted to break the title defense record after winning the title. So I assume that he'll be defending his title at his All-Star Junior Festival show. With so many interesting options available, who do you think he'll be defending his title against? Or do you think Amakusa will beat him on Muto's retirement show and the rematch will be for the title on this show?
With 22 plus companies involved in this All-Star Festival, hard to say what it's going to be. I can't imagine that there's many singles matches. I wouldn't be surprised if it's nothing but multi-man tag team matches. But if you were going to do a major singles title match at the top, you might want to do the IWGP Junior title. And what you propose with him and Amakusa makes a lot of sense. You could do something else. I am not knowledgeable enough about the outside junior divisions, especially 22 companies of them, to really give you a strong take. But I think what you proposed is as good of a booking decision as any other.
Yeah, if they really want to set up a rematch there, yeah, then you can have Amakusa beat Hiromu in the Tokyo Dome and do the big rematch there, and tease the potential of him taking the junior title back to Noah.
I will say this: we didn't cover it in the news, but we were flagged on Twitter. They sold out that event in Koraukuen Hall. They probably should have done a bigger building.
Yeah,
bigger.
He also asked, how would you feel if someone like former Boss J participant Vegeta Jr. Hayato was Hiromu's opponent? Last year, he had his first match back from cancer and won the Michinoku Pro Junior Heavyweight title. He stated after winning that his dream opponents would be Hiromu and his eternal rival Kano. He also said that he doesn't know how much longer he can go, so the sooner this can happen, the better.
I would love it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really too familiar with Hayato, but I mean,
he rules. You would like him. He's really good. You should check out some of his stuff, honestly.
Nice. Then he says here, do you think the Voldor Jr. vs. Rocky Romero rematch will happen at Fantastica Mania? Do you think their hair versus hair match can possibly happen in Japan?
So I haven't been following enough of this. I know that there was, like the bicentennial Copa, tournament, the tag team tournament that they won. And then I don't know what happened, but somehow there ended up being a title match between Rocky and Volador. Obviously, Rocky won. Apparently, Rocky was playing a heel. Last week, Rocky shoved a cake into Volador's face. There's talks of them having a hair versus hair match and a rematch for the title. So it sounds like it might be a 3-match series. I don't follow CMLL enough to know what's going on, but I'm looking a little bit online because this has been pretty intriguing. But I wouldn't be surprised with the timing of all this if a big part of why they did this was to time the rematch between these two guys for Fantasticamania. It seems very likely that there's some sort of match in the works between them for that tour.
Yeah, they're opposite sides of the 8-man tag at Battle in the Valley, which I believe is before Fantasticamania. So I'm sure that 8-man tag will potentially build something for Fantasticamania. And last question here from our good friend Rocky Romero, asking us, did we watch the match, the aforementioned match between him and Volador Jr. and sent the YouTube link?
Well, Rock, we have not watched that match, and there's a good reason behind why we haven't watched the match. We've heard all the buzz. We know all the hype behind it, but we wanted to save this match for the excursion match of the week. And if we watched ahead of time, how are we going to review it for excursion match of the week? So yes, that is going to be my pick for excursion match of the week this week. And, Jeremy, I know you're not going to be on the show, but I think that I'll probably just watch it and review it along with your recommendation for recommended match of the week. I'll probably just do both.
All right, yeah, I'm definitely planning on watching this match. I haven't watched it yet, Rocky. Sorry about that, but because I knew eventually we'd cover it for excursion match of the week. But yeah, I'm going to watch it because I've heard, Dave gave it 4 3/4. People have been raving about this. Rocky's now the top heel in CMLL, so definitely going to watch it, support our good friend Rocky Romero, and check that out.
Even though he left me on red last time I tried messaging.
So moving in, that brings into recommended match of the week. So last week's excursion match of the week recommended the Darby versus Kushida TNT title match from Dynamite. Did you rewatch that one?
Yeah, I got a chance to rewatch this match, and it was just as good as I had recalled it being when I watched it live. I thought it was really tremendous. I thought Kushida with his limb work was not only fluid, but also kind of cruel, kind of ruthless. And when you have someone that's so spry and wiry and like kind of haphazard as Darby Allin, he does a really great job selling that limb work and showing that pain and getting that sympathy. Some of the things I didn't like about this match, and it's kind of the same things I didn't like about, say, most other really good TV matches from AEW. It's just like the commercial breaks. I do think they break up the flow a little bit and do make it hard to grade matches like this to the same level as, say, like a pay-per-view style main event. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But the match was incredible. Seeing Darby fly all over the place, seeing him and Kushida mat wrestle and do all the technical stuff, all the high-flying stuff, the arm work from Kushida. Match was really, 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 really awesome. I think that the match could have used, like, say, 5 more minutes, though. I think that they shortchanged them just a little bit on the television side of things, kept it a little short. It only went, like, 13 minutes and change, and I think, like, if they'd gone, like, 18 minutes, we're looking at like a real classic here. All the same, I'm still like 4-star, somewhere between like 4 and 4 1/4. But
yeah,
I thought this was awesome, and it's exactly what I like to see from the AEW New Japan partnership. So highly recommended.
Nice. Then for your recommended match of the week, you recommended Volador Jr. versus Ultimo Guerrero from Fantasticamania 2017. And boy, what a treat this matchup was. You had a hot Koraukuen Hall crowd, two huge CMLL stars, and this was a really fun matchup to watch. I was a little confused at first when because both men had their masks on. I thought that both of them had lost it by then, but I always forget that they do that. They come with their mask and then
they do it like every Fantascomania.
Yeah, and so they both had their masks and they like threw them in the crowd. Ultimo Guerrero was super over like he usually is. Had the crowd, raising the roof, and there were just so many crazy like spots in here. Volador, huge suicide dive. It is this crazy like code red reversal spot. Volador did this over the top rope run to the outside. Volador goes for a tope. Ultimo catches him and then powerbomb him to the floor. Ultimo does this diving senton to the outside. He has this crazy top rope face buster. Volador does a springboard run to the outside. Then he did a super springboard Rana. Ultimo did like a super reverse suplex, I think, which is one of his finishers. And then ultimately, Volador got the win with a Spanish fly. And that's just some of like the highlights of the spot. So if you haven't watched this match, it's on New Japan World. Fantasticomania. Definitely go out of your way to watch it. I'm somewhere between 4.25 stars and 4.5 stars.
Wow.
It was just an awesome main event. And then Volador is just outstanding. And Ultimo Guerrero, for a guy his size, he's more of a thicker luchador. He can still do some really awesome stuff as well. So this is definitely a match to check out. And it really got me excited for this year's Fantastica Mania.
Great. Well, this week, again, the excursion match of the week is going to be Rocky Romero versus Volador Jr. from Arena Mexico, CMLL from this. I don't know if it was this past. It wasn't this past week, but like a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago.
Yes, and that's available on CMLL's YouTube. Then for the recommended match of the week, I couldn't get enough of Volador Jr., so we're going back to Best Super Juniors 24, Night 13, Volador Jr. versus Kushida.
Yep. So that is going to do it for this week's show. Next week, it says we, but it's not going to be we, right? It's going to be me, right?
Right, yes. I am not going to be on the show next week. I'm going to be out of town.
Yeah, so we had discussed myself and potentially a guest host coming to bring you guys the show. But I think I'm going to go ahead and make the judgment call now. I've done some tinkering around, downloaded some software, done some test runs, and I think I'm ready to unleash on the world the first ever official solo Young Boy Keeping It Strong Style episode. I will be back next week reviewing both New Beginning in Sapporo shows as well as previewing the major New Beginning in Osaka show. So for those of you guys that don't like me, if you exist, I assume most of you do, but if you don't, you might want to tune out of that show. But I will be, I'll be doing my best. I'll be doing all the things that I don't normally do that I let fall on Jeremy, like taking notes, paying attention. I'm going to actually do that this time and try to fill in that part of it. And I will be back. And here's the thing. If it airs, it airs. If it doesn't, then it just doesn't. You guys will have to make do. So I'm gonna try and record it as early as possible so I can get it over to the appropriate parties to make sure it gets out on time for you guys. So
nice. So check that out. Keep listening to the show, whether or not you like the Young Boy. Keep subscribing. Keep downloading. So Joshua.
And if you guys, same for Jeremy. I'm sure there's some of you that hate him. So
I mean, there's people call me mush mouth and all kind of stuff. So
bro, I saw that thing from that dude the other day. I was going through some of the old messages and I saw that and I was like, fuck that guy.
Josh will be back next week to cover New Beginning in Sapporo. So if you enjoyed today's show, please consider making a donation by going to socialsuplex.com/donate and click on the donate button under the Keeping It Strong Style logo. Make sure you connect with us on social media. On Twitter, the show is at KI Strong Style. You can follow the network at Social Suplex. You can follow me at Jeremy L. Donovan. On Facebook, we are at facebook.com/Social Suplex. Also find us in the Wrestling Squared Circle Facebook group. On Instagram, we're at Social Suplex. On Reddit, I'm the Pro Black Guy. Y'all just Keepin It Strong Style. You can email me, Jeremy at socialsuplex.com. Check out all the other shows that we have here on the Social Suplex Podcast Network. One Nation Radio, hosted by Rich Latta and James Boyd. The Grave Consequences, hosted by Caleb and Maserati. All Things Elite, hosted by Floyd and Austin. The AEW Match Guide Podcast, hosted by Sir Sam. And the Great Match Generator, hosted by Danny. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and review. And we will catch you next week on Keepin It Strong Style, the ace of podcasts.
Itchy. Bye.
Thank you for listening to Keepin It Strong Style. We'll see you next time.